Konoha, Reviving Senju, starting with Concubines. Author, Vortex. Chapter 376, The Dirty Soil Army assembles. They didn't expect Senju Kusanagi to have such terrifying strength. How many surprises did they not know about the man in front of them? Amid everyone's surprised gazes, Senju Kusanagi also arrived directly above Sokyoku Hill. Looking at the open space below, Senju Kusanagi directly burst out the chakra of his Sugoroku Magatama Rinnegan. The new energy mixed with Ryatsu and chakra burst out instantly, followed by a simple seal and a loud shout, "Forbidden technique, impure world reincarnation." The next second, a terrifying Ryatsu soared into the sky and exploded from the position of Senju Kusanagi. The death energy of Huangquan instantly filled the entire square 757. The entire Sokyoku Hill is filled with this lifeless environment. The captains round looked frightened. You must know that as people who have died once before, they can be said to be relatively experienced in facing death. However, the huge underworld energy gathering around him at this moment still makes these people tremble. Is the effect that can only be achieved by a few kilograms of purgatory really be the ability that Senju Star Yoruichi can exert alone? Seeing the scene in front of them, everyone was not calm at all. This is simply beyond their understanding. Is Senju Starry Night the one to blame from hell? Although it is not uncommon for the guilty to escape from hell, this time it may not be so simple to explain. Just when everyone was filled with suspicion, the situation turned out to be strange. The underworld energy gathered in the square, and in the next second, endless rows of ancient coffins were summoned. At a glance, the sky is boundless and fills the entire square. The entire Sokyoku Hill seems to have turned into a huge tomb. Seeing such a scene, the captains were completely surprised. What exactly is going on? Why is there so much death energy? The magnificent momentum is definitely not something that can be seen at ordinary times. You must know that Aizen is a traitor who defected from Soul Society and went to Commando in full view of the public, including the first Hokage and the second Hokage. The once famous gauge-level powerhouses instantly filled the bipolar hill. Mainly it's not necessary. Like everyone else, these members of the Akatsuki organization are also in Rinnegan status, and their strength has obviously been strengthened. Those active ninjas who were once active on the battlefield now reappeared on the battlefield in another form. How dare such a traitor come back? But now with Senju Kusanagi's power bonus, his strength has obviously reached a new breakthrough. When everyone saw Aizen, they were mostly surprised. It is enough to use these impure world reincarnation bodies to deal with the coming invisible Imperial Guards and those so-called divine soldiers. As soon as he finished speaking, Senju Starry Night directly used the Six Paths Rinnegan to open the passage to Commando. Are these people's souls from the underworld? 100,000 Rinnegan, impure world reincarnation army. This is incredible. The next summons was the former Jinchuriki. The captains all had expressions of disbelief. As for the captain who just died, Yamamoto Genryu's eye was not summoned. These people were clearly cage-level experts from the 5 major ninja villages. However, some careful ninjas even discovered that the eyes of everyone around them turned into Rinnegan's state. Among them was even the former strong Uchiha Madara. You must know that people like me, 4.9, are all destructive beings. If you don't believe it, you can all watch what happens. Of course, Senju Kusanagi finally retained some necessary thinking ability for fighting. Surprisingly, he is a former member of the Akatsuki organization. You must know that Huangquan is the interlayer between the real world and the Soul Society. It is a place that provides a habitat for the dying soul after death. After the last set of coffins were summoned, the world seemed to have condensed clouds. A group of people wearing black robes and embroidered with auspicious clouds walked out of the coffin. Thinking of this, Senju Kusanagi also smiled slightly and looked at the captains around him. Those former Jinchuriki who still have tailed beast chakra left in their bodies can also mobilize the tailed beast chakra to form tailed beast clothes. Everyone looked at each other in shock at this point, and in the end they couldn't figure out why. In the midst of emotion, the lids of the coffins also slid down, and the impure world reincarnation bodies inside also opened their eyes at the same time. Aizen, you probably wanted to take advantage of the situation because you heard about the accident that happened to Soul Society. However, the shock at this moment was not over. While everyone was still in shock, Senju Kusanagi formed the seal again, and the second wave of impure world reincarnation had been unleashed. But in order to prevent other troubles, Kusanagi directly obliterated the consciousness of these people. I didn't expect that there would be such a huge group of stranded souls in the underworld. The next second, Aizen came to join the battle with Commando's many espadas. Chapter 377, Arrancar Legion gathers. Seeing the sudden appearance of Aizen, the captains were also filled with indignation. I didn't expect that you would take advantage of the situation. Just as the captain was trending, do you really want Soul Society to fall into a state of no return? Don't think that because Captain Yamamoto is no longer here, you can do whatever you want. Soul Society is not a place where you can come and leave whenever you want. The captains were filled with righteous indignation, as if they were going to cut Aizen into pieces at any moment. However, when facing Aizen alone, He was almost helpless, and now there were so many espadas who were above the captain level. You must know that these so-called espadas were originally Commando's top Menos Grandaduces, and there were even Vasto Lord Menos Grand that surpassed the captain level. Now facing so many Arrancar espada and an Aizen, it is still very difficult in the current situation. However, because Senju Kusanai had just used Impure World Reincarnation, and after possessing Senju Kusanai's Impure World Reincarnation 100,000 Army 07, these captains obviously had the slightest hope of victory. Third Senju, we recognize that you are the supreme commander of the Serenity Chamber. Enemies have come to attack Soul Society. Please order the commander to hang the traitor. Someone set the pace, and the other captains all echoed, yes. We are willing to recommend Senju Kusanai as the commander-in-chief of the Soul Society Gotai 13th Division. Senju Starry Night, Senju Starry Night, Senju Starry Night. There was a roar and a tsunami, all of which were the voices surrounding Senju Kusanai's election as the commander-in-chief of Soul Society. However, at this moment, Senju Kusanai faced such a call, but he just smiled very calmly. Haha, I think you may have a rash. I actually recruited Captain Aizen, and I also recruited Arrancar Espada from Commando. After hearing Senju Kusanai's words, everyone present looked shocked and stunned. What does it mean? Senju 3 seats, are you also rebelling? Did you defect to that traitor Aizen? Is this all Aizen's conspiracy? We must have lured the wolf into the house, right? With so many previous situations, everyone is now speculating on Senju Kusanai's intention of doing this. Faced with everyone's speculation, Wang Kusanai also felt very speechless. Are you rebelling against Jing Lingting? From the beginning to the end, he does not belong to any force, so how can he talk about betrayal? As for taking refuge in Aizen, that is even more nonsense. Based on Aizen's level, is he worthy? Senju Kusanai is naturally disdainful. At this time, Aizen stood up and came to the center of Sokyoku Hill, in front of Renmin Kusanai. The next second, when everyone was confused, Aizen knelt down on one knee and performed a standard courtesy. Senju-sama, according to your instructions, Aizen Sosyuk led Commando's subordinates to join the battle. Looking at this scene in front of them, many captains even felt that they were dreaming. Otherwise, how could we see such a ridiculous scene? This is Aizen Sosyuk. This is Soul Society's most ambitious conspirator, and how could he succumb to Senju Kusanai so easily? This is incredible. But what happened next was even more shocking. The next second, not only Aizen Sosyuk, but even the Trop Menos Grand who once dominated Commando and is now known as Espada after breaking through, fell down one after another in front of Senju Starry Night. See Senju-sama. Subordinates obey the orders of Lord Hand. Such a scene simply made the high-ranking captains around them secretly frightened. Until this moment, they didn't know how terrifying power Senju Kusanai had secretly accumulated. Whether it was the 100,000 Impure World Reincarnation Legion or Commando's Espada, they all gave the captains a big shock. While everyone was shocked, Senju Kusanai slowly looked at Aizen Sosyuk and said with a smile, you came at the right time, but since 550 can come, that's all. The next destination is to face the Invisible Empire's millions of holy soldiers, as well as the invincible bodyguards of Hueco. The next step will be our decisive battle. Brothers, keep your morale high, we are bound to win. Definitely win. Definitely win. With the encouragement of Senju Kusanai, many soldiers of the Gotai 13th Division became full of fighting spirit again. After solving the situation here, Senju Kusanai also successfully ascended the position of Special Combat Commander of Soul Society Gotai 13th Division. Not long after, Senju Kusanai opened his black cavity again, and even directly connected to the world transmitting gate in the shadow. You must know that these are the passages connecting the Invisible Empire. The portal has been expanded to such an extent that it is obvious that a large number of warriors can pass through it instantly. This provides convenient conditions for subsequent counterattacks. Due to the special abilities of those in the Invisible Empire, Senju Kusanai decided to wait and see for the time being. Chapter 378, The Birth of the Commander-in-Chief. After making all the preparations, Senju Kusanai also ordered the entire Gotai 13th Division to upgrade its security. In the event of any emergency, everyone must fight immediately. Jingling Court also doubled the number of sentries everywhere. In case of any emergencies, the guards of the entire Jingling Court should be notified as soon as possible. After arranging the sentries, Senju Kusanai came before his combined army of Impure World Reincarnation. Everyone, including Uchiha Hamadara, stood in front of him with empty eyes at this moment. However, if I control so many people at the same time, I'm afraid it will still be a little tiring. Moreover, if you want the people of Impure World Reincarnation to display their true strength, some restrictions must be appropriately lifted. With this in mind, Senju Starry Night also took the lead in unlocking the restrictions of Uchiha Hamadara and Senju Hashirama. After regaining consciousness, Uchiha Hamadara first looked at Senju Starry Night with an angry look. You kid, you lied to me last time and caused me to explode and die twice. How dare you summon me out? You really don't know how to live or die. The boy from the Senju family. Hearing that Senju Kusanai was Hui of his own Senju clan, Senju Hashirama looked surprised. Is this boy from the Senju clan? I didn't expect that someone from the Senju clan would break through to this level. It's really gratifying. After seeing Senju Kusanai's eyes, Senju Hashirama's expression obviously changed slightly. And Uchiha Madara is more of a slightly jealous fear. After what happened last time, Uchiha Madara also realized the extraordinary strength of Senju Kusanai. Unexpectedly, the belief that I have always believed in turned out to be a lie woven in black. This is still a big blow to Uchiha Madara. The Senju Kusanai in front of him was already extraordinary in strength, and now coupled with the special effects of the 6 Magatama Rinnegan, I am afraid that he is no longer his opponent. With what Senju Kusanai said before, Uchiha Madara also has a new understanding at this moment, especially the understanding of the entire ninja village has become extremely profound. In this life, 9 out of 10 things will go wrong. There is inevitably darkness in human nature, and it is absolutely impossible to unilaterally eliminate darkness, because even if the current darkness is eliminated, there will be new darkness. As long as people are alive, darkness will inevitably breed. It is just a matter of time and speed. With this thought, Uchiha Madara finally sighed. Tell me, what happened to summon us this time? From the first moment they were summoned, Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara noticed the strange environment in front of them. In particular, there were so many people they had never seen before standing on the bipolar hill, which made them even more confused. Where exactly was he summoned? Seeing everything unfamiliar in front of him, Senju Hashirama also had the same questions as Uchiha Madara. When Uchiha Madara raised this question, Senju Hashirama also secretly concentrated his energy and prepared to listen to Senju Kusanai's explanation. However, this place now is a space that can only be reached after death. A higher level space that originally did not belong to this world, Soul Society. But how can we explain this knowledge to them? This is obviously unlikely. You don't need to know so much, you just need to understand a little. If the next battle fails, not only the entire ninja village world, but also the other 3 realms will also perish. In order to save the 3 realms, you must use all your strength to deal with the enemies you encounter next. Although he didn't say it in detail, Senju Kusanai's meaning was still very clearly conveyed to the ears of the 2 people. 54. Now they have the physique of impure world reincarnation, so there is no need to think so much, because it's useless no matter how much they think about it. As long as Senju Star Yoruichi has an idea, they will lose the ability to act on their own. It's useless to resist. This means that Senju Starry Night doesn't actually have to deceive them at all. Thinking of this, Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama also decided to temporarily cooperate with Kusanai's tactics. The coalition of dirty ninjas will be entrusted to the 2 of you to lead and occupy respectively. Senju Hashirama is responsible for leading the 100,000 ninja army. Uchiha Madara is, remarkably, responsible for leading the former Kage squad, and the former Jinchuriki squad. After making these arrangements, Kusanai instilled his thoughts just now into the mind control of impure world reincarnation. To know. After dividing up the defensive power at key positions, Senju Kusanai finally closed his eyes and began to concentrate. In recent times, many incidents have really happened. Although his own strength has been significantly improved, it seems that he really hasn't had much time to rest for so long. Enjoying the rare leisure, Senju Starry Night also started to meditate immediately. Just take this time to digest the latest receipt. Chapter 379, Invisible Empire Invasion. The setting sun at dusk shines on the Shuangjia Hill, giving off a dim color. The entire world was also covered with a golden filter. The entire Soul Society was silent, like the brief calm before the storm. On the other side, the vanguard of the Invisible Empire detected Soul Society's movements and reported it to Hueco immediately. Your Majesty, Soul Society's quiet spiritual courtyard is heavily guarded, and there are even many forces that do not originally belong to Soul Society. Those people seem to be the remnant souls from the underworld, but their actions seem to be unrestricted. In addition, Aizen, who betrayed Soul Society, has returned to Jinglingting, and Commandos Espada led the funeral team to help out. The portal we left behind has been expanded 10 times. Please make your decision, Your Majesty. After the sentry from the forward battalion came back to report, Yohabush also had an unexpected expression on his face. I thought that if we killed the old man Yamamoto General Yuzai, Soul Society's Sirita would also collapse. I didn't expect that the other party would have someone who could control the overall situation. 833. This time, it was my fault. Hearing Hueco's muttering, the guards behind him came up and asked, Your Majesty, since the opponent has already been prepared, do we need to change the time of the attack? Faced with the suggestions from his subordinates, Yohabush didn't take it to heart at all, and just said calmly, the plan remains unchanged. We will conduct a raid on Soul Society according to the original plan. The portal we left has been expanded 10 times. This is a message sent to us by the other party's commander, or it might be more appropriate to call it a provocation. Since their commanders are challenging my authority in this way, we naturally cannot retreat. If the space of the portal is narrow, it will actually be beneficial to Soul Society's defense. Because the space of the portal is limited, The opponent only needs to stay at the door to achieve a situation where more people are attacking less people. However, the portal at this moment has been expanded 10 times. Such a large space can obviously accommodate more combat power. Both sides' forces can find their opponents at the first opportunity. It can be said to be a head-on battle. With Hueco's explanation, other members of the guards also fully understood the purpose of this approach. Thinking of this, Yohabush coldly issued an order: Invisible Empire, Knights of the Star Cross. General attack. Traveler invasion. However, almost at the same time, the messenger fell to the ground. The affected area collapsed and exploded, and the rubble exploded into slag. The people around it were also caught off guard by such an attack. Ajay, there's a situation. Following the orders from the members of the guards, the millions of holy soldiers below the stands also cheered and shouted. The Earth-style ninja descending from the sky instantly launched a joint ninjutsu, combining the Earth-style earthquake wave with a limited range into a super earthquake wave with a large range and more powerful effect. Long live your majesty. After discovering the anomaly, the messenger immediately sent out a signal flare. At the same time, there was something strange about Soul Society's jingling court on the other side. Long live your majesty. After Hueco's mobilization, the holy soldiers of the entire Invisible Empire were instantly full of momentum. Within the scope of such ninjutsu, it is as if you are in a strong earthquake, Earth-style. It was only at this time that other people around him realized that they were surrounded by a group of holy soldiers. The fluorescent hell butterfly suddenly began to fly around as if it sensed some special signal. Start, earthquake. Fortunately, he had already made arrangements, so that he could kill those holy soldiers by surprise. Sure enough, after expanding the scope, there were still many places attacked by the Invisible Empire division at the same time. Set off. When other sentries saw this effect, they were immediately alert. Sir Senju, these bastards are not worth mentioning in front of my espada. Just let me take someone down for a walk. Senju Starry Night is located at the top of Sokyoku Hill, overlooking the entire Sirete. Seeing that the Gota members were beaten so hard that they were unable to fight back, however, at this moment, a strange vibration suddenly appeared on the ground. Ninja Alliance technique. With an order, the invisible white holy soldiers of the Invisible Empire cheered instantly. Seeing the abnormality in front of him, Aizen first tasked Ying, the Holy Legion of the Invisible Empire. Report it quickly. Traveler invasion. However, how can those pampered Shinigami players be a match for those Xenu from the Invisible Empire who hide their capabilities and bide their time? The shouts of beating and killing continued, and the holy soldiers began to fall to the ground in batches. The Holy Soldier Legion, which was charging forward a moment ago, was now being beaten by the Impure World Reincarnation Legion and was unable to fight back. After just a few rounds, the Gotai members of Soul Society's Sirete were directly at a disadvantage. The surrounding Shinigami heard such shouts and rushed to the scene to support immediately, followed by a burst of fighting and killing. Chapter 380, The Immortal Raikage. Facing Aizen's initiative to ask for a job, Senju Kusanai also expressed his comfort. I'm very pleased that you have this intention, but this battle doesn't need Espada's entry yet. To deal with miscellaneous soldiers, it is natural to use equal miscellaneous soldiers. The Impure World Reincarnation's 100,000 strong army of the ninja world. With a blessing of his own Rinnegan, it is easy to deal with these so-called Holy Soldier Legions. You must know that the ninjas of Impure World Reincarnation are immortal. If there is no corresponding sealing technique, the group of holy soldiers will not be able to deal with it at all. The fact is just as Senju Kusanai guessed. After the Impure World Reincarnation Corps joined the battlefield, the situation reversed instantly. The original captains were still waiting anxiously. Although they received the order from Senju Kusanai to stand still, they were not very patient. They almost couldn't help but want to take part in the war several times. However, at this critical moment, they also saw the tyranny of the Impure World Reincarnation troops. Realistic ground turbulence and water waves, with various elements of wind, thunder, water, fire, and earth filling the entire battlefield. The Invisible Empire's Sick Legion, which had never seen this kind of power before, was also defeated steadily. However, the situation on the battlefield is just that of ordinary ninjas, just tools used to consume the holy soldiers. At this critical moment, a circular beam of light instantly appeared on the battlefield, penetrating everything wherever it went. The person who appeared was none other than Li Jieba, who is known as the one who penetrates all things. The code name of the Invisible Empire is X, which symbolizes the ability of X-axis. Looking at the scene in front of him, he also successfully attracted Senju Kusanai's attention. Left Barrow is a black man with white hair and a tattoo of an X on his left eye. This person was one of the 4 members of the Hueco Guards, and he did not expect to appear on the battlefield in advance. It seems that Hueco's determination to win the Quiet Spirit Palace is inevitable. Seeing the Holy Soldier Legion being beaten to the point where they were unable to fight back, Li Jiabuo's eyes were also very disdainful. You people are simply embarrassing His Majesty. The filth from the underworld was wrapped on his pierced face, and the body that was supposed to die miraculously recovered. Although he had opened his left eye, he was still killed by his predecessor Raikage. Seeing the opponent being pierced by him, Li Jiabuo felt relieved. Just when he was about to close his eyes, he suddenly found that the enemy on the opposite side began to emit a strange light with a blessing of the double Rinnegan. The strength of the former Raikage also increased by leaps and bounds. Although he has the ability to penetrate everything, even so, he is helpless when facing his predecessor Raikage. Impressively, the former Raikage of the impure world reincarnation state with Raikage's supermoving speed. The predecessor Raikage surrounded by lightning armor is like a thunderbolt from the sky. However, at the same time, the hand knife of the predecessor Raikage also pierced the heart of Ridgebello. The strong pain made Lee Jieba let out a scream. As soon as he finished speaking, Lee Jieba made another piercing through all things, passing through the entire battlefield in an instant. In the next second, a golden light burst out instantly, and with a burst of golden light in his eyes, the ability to penetrate everything appeared instantly, directly piercing the forehead of the predecessor Raikage. Although he was full of reluctance, Lee Jieba still had to close his eyes. Between lightning and thunder, it shot towards Lee Jieba like lightning. 0. However, the matter is far from over. After the shooting, the predecessor movie jumped up and came to Lee Jieba in an instant. I risked my life to cause damage, but it just recovered. Before Lee Jieba had time to react, a blood hole was pierced through the brow by the hand knife of the previous movie. Death comes too easily. But no one can escape this fate. With his gaze, he couldn't even keep up with the figure of his predecessor Raikage, let alone react in any way. What's happening here? At this moment, a stronger man wearing armor shining with lightning joined the battlefield. Your Majesty, after all, I am ashamed of you. Is this how you trust the soldiers brought by the Commander-in-Chief? Almost at the same time, the soldiers on one line fell to pieces. Lee Jieba, who fell slowly, finally felt the coldness of death. Under the impact of huge force, a big hole appeared in the face of the former Raikage, and the whole person lost the ability to move. Then what's the point of my death? The physical feeling of the soul slowly withdrawing is really unsettling. Everyone else saw Raikage's super-moving speed, and their eyes were filled with unbelievable surprise. In desperation, Jieba actually opened his left eye covered with a black cross mark. It's really useless to live. Please give me flowers. Seeing the enemy appearing in front of his eyes, Lee Jieba wanted to dodge, but his subconscious reaction could not keep up with the speed of his predecessor Raikage. Lee Jieba couldn't believe his eyes. Chapter 381. Do you penetrate everything? I also penetrate everything. Seeing the scene where the type instantly killed Lee Jieba, the expressions of everyone present became very surprised. You are indeed a warrior brought by the Commander-in-Chief. This speed is even faster than Captain Sui Feng. Not only that, besides the speed, the strength seems to be beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. To be able to penetrate the enemy's body with just a hand knife is simply heaven-defying. Until this moment, no one knew why a newcomer like Senju Kusanai had such arrogance and courage to compete with many veteran captains for the position of Commander-in-Chief. It turns out that they not only relied on an army of 100,000, but also had 803 such heaven-defying monsters under their command. It's an instant kill as soon as it's shot, and it can be resurrected if the head is penetrated. He truly is an immortal warrior of impure world reincarnation. However, just as everyone was surprised by Senju Kusanai's wisdom, Lee Jieba, who should have been wiped out, was miraculously resurrected. A voice filled with ethereal thought came to mind. Resurrection, my warrior. The member of the guards I was once proud of, Lee Jieba. With a simple chant, Lee Jieba, who was supposed to return to the underworld, now regained his vitality again. Facing a familiar opponent, Lee Jieba successfully completed his rebirth. Recovering the original strength, Lee Jieba also had lingering fears. It seems that I still underestimated you. I didn't expect that your speed would be so fast, and that my ability to penetrate all things would not be able to pose a threat to you. As he spoke, Lee Jieba's expression was a little strange, as if he was in a state of confusion and pretentiousness. Of course, it is not ruled out that like Barrow's ability will cause much trouble to Soul Society. The most powerful drug in front of him is also so unbearable. If Lee Jieba directly activates his strongest ability, I am afraid that the entire Jingling Court will be plunged into darkness. Ha 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 ha, you forced me to do this. I didn't expect that I would be humiliated by you mortals. The previous generation Raikage stood up again. Originally, His Majesty Hueco has restricted my fighting ability. I cannot open my left eye unless absolutely necessary. I didn't expect that in the same battle, you could actually open my eyes 3 times. While speaking, Lee Jieba suddenly opened his left eye, and the black cross instantly bloomed with a golden light, disappearing into the empty left eye. However, in front of everyone, the previous generation Raikage, who should have disappeared into thin air, stood up again. Especially in the same battle, you must never open your left eye 3 times in a row. It was obviously a matter of special cerebral palsy, but when it came out of his mouth, Graham was immediately shocked. And, once I open my left eye for the 3rd time in 3.6, I can keep fighting with my left eye open. With the appearance of a strong light, the enhanced version of all things penetration shot directly through the chest of the previous generation Raikage. At the beginning of the battle, in order to pretend not to open your eyes, If you open your eyes 3 times in a row, it means you can't fight, so you have to open your eyes. According to His Majesty Hueco's wishes, it means that I need the power crystal in my left eye during this battle. It seems that my attack cannot harm you. Let you see my true state. True, everything is connected. It's so unforgivable. The previous generation Raikage once again transformed into withering dust. One after another golden light penetrated continuously, and the body of the previous generation Raikage was shattered just as it was about to take shape. Is this any different from taking off your pants and farting? Does this mean that Jieba has used up all 3 opportunities to open his eyes? However, this process continued for an unknown number of times, when Jieba stopped attacking with confidence. Don't be too happy now, since you allowed me to open my left eye 3 times in the same battle. Let me show you my true strength. Looking at the unkillable enemy in front of him, Jieba finally admitted the reality. With this experience, Jieba did not stop attacking, but launched a series of attacks in full swing. Hearing this, the others recalled the battle just now. As he spoke, Jieba's expression seemed a little helpless, followed by another angry roar. Immediately afterwards, a powerful ray burst out instantly. Such a fast speed, even faster than Yakimarujin's Kamishini no Yari, as if the long ray of light suddenly appeared out of thin air, making people react flawlessly. Is he about to admit defeat? Senju Kusanai sometimes really laments Hueco's ability to deceive. After completing the holy body form, Senju Kusanai almost laughed out loud after hearing Jieba's remarks that were almost pretentious. Just when everyone looked puzzled, Jieba sneered sinisterly, "In this case, I can only let you see my true power." Jieba was right. He seemed to have been attacked 3 times with his left eye open. Chapter 382, Jieba was killed. He is indeed the crouching dragon and phoenix chick of the pretending world, and he has the same purpose as Aizen. Senju Kusanai was too lazy to listen to his nonsense. Directly controlling Raikage, he launched a new round of attacks. Jieba had just completed the unsealing of the holy body, and with the appearance of a pair of extremely huge Ryatsu wings, the overwhelming feather arrows rushed towards the predecessor's shadow like a violent storm. Although it is blessed with lightning-style armor, it is still unable to resist the piercing attack of Jieba. Thousands of feather arrows fell on the body of the predecessor Raikage, instantly causing scars. However, even so, it was still unable to withstand the attack of the former shadow. Although his piercing attack can also produce the desired effect, even if the body wrapped in Raikage is riddled with holes, the offensive is still unabated in the end. While the layers of dirt and debris peeled off crazily, the body from the underworld was also rapidly reorganized and regenerated. 12 carried the crazy shower-like attack like this, and in an instant, he moved in front of Light Barrow. With the rotation of the 6 paths Rinnegan, he directly penetrated Light Barrow's heart with a piercing hand knife. Pass, puff. Under the violent spray of blood, Jieba, who returned to the perfect holy body, once again lost the vitality of life. He was killed instantly again. Unexpectedly, the heaven-defying bug-like Jieba was killed by this monster twice in a row. The Quincy's Invisible Imperial Legion simply couldn't believe their eyes. You must know that Jieba is one of the first group of people given abilities by Hueco. He is one of the only members of the guards and is the absolute combat power of the Invisible Empire. However, with such strength, Jieba was beaten to the point where he was unable to fight back. This is simply unbelievable. On the same day, he was killed twice in a row, which was really unreasonable for Light Barrow. However, Jieba still gave Light Barrow another chance. It has to be said that this Light Barrow is indeed his first masterpiece. After investing so much energy, naturally he would not be willing to fall like this. At the moment of the battle here, other positions in Jinglingting also started to fight. The captains of the Gotai 13th Division were killing everyone, but with the addition of the Star-Crossed Legion, a group of captains also began to fall into a bitter battle. In addition, the strong men from Impure World Reincarnation brought by Senju Kusanai also joined the battle to assist the captains in defense. The entire Jingling court suddenly became chaotic. The sound of killing was everywhere, gunpowder smoke was everywhere, and accompanied by the occasional roar and explosion. The entire Jingling court seemed to have turned into a battlefield. At the top of the two-pole hill, Senju Starry Knight sits on the throne and watches the battlefield. His indifferent eyes swept across, and finally stayed at the position of the ruined Jieba. Accompanied by the holy light of Yohabush, Jieba, who died twice, was resurrected again. After the improvement of Yohabush's combat power, the reborn Jieba also entered the advanced mode of the complete holy body for the first time, the complete holy body and even sanctions. After Jieba entered the holy body, his head was completely wrapped in Ryatsu, his face had a pair of vertical yellow stripes, there was a huge halo on his head, and his body was covered in a pupa-like thing. Compared with the previous perfect saint body, the wings composed of light blue Ryatsu have now turned golden yellow, and the original pair of wings have also become 8 pairs of light wings. The whole thing looks like a form of shining holy light. Feeling his own power, Jieba's expression also became extremely excited. Watching the dirty movie, Jieba's expression was clearly disdainful. It is ridiculous for a mere mortal to try to shake the gods. You actually pushed me to this level, so don't blame me for being ruthless. After finishing speaking, Lee Jieba directly burst into an unprecedented ryatsu, and a strange energy began to accumulate crazily in his body. 460 The surrounding sky seemed to darken as a result. The people fighting in other places also felt the change of color from heaven and earth, and immediately felt the pressure of extraordinary strength. TCH, is it Little Barrow? Being able to force Lee Jieba into this form, it seems that the people in Soul Society are also very capable. Miraculous Gerald looked at the eight-winged angel behind him, Lee Jieba, with a naive smile on his face, revealing a meaningful smile. Miraculous Gerald, who is also a member of the Hueco Guards, is well aware of the strength of his teammate Light Barrow. Seeing Light Barrow evolve into the Lightwing form, he feels very curious in his heart. What kind of opponent can actually do this with such strong strength is really impressive. Looking at the strange man covered in bandages in front of him, Miraculous Gerald also looked excited. It seems that your partner is not bad. It seems that your strength can also please me, right? Chapter 383, Resurrection, the Power of Gods. Although he felt that the bandaged monster in front of him was a bit strange, as his teammates were monsters of that level, the enemy in front of him could not be as weak as he felt, right? Observing the opponent in front of him carefully, his upper body and face were covered with bandages. There were strange symbols painted on the black ribbon forehead protector. The whole person looked vaguely impotent. The most important point is that Miracle Gerald is completely unable to perceive the strength of his strength. This made him feel very novel. What's your name? Do you dare to tell me your name? None. A simple and clear answer, never saying another word. This person is none other than Iwagakure's second Tsuchikage. He has a bloodline elimination that is far more powerful than the bloodline limit, and the controller of dust release, Wu. Thinking of this, Miyu, who was mid-sentence, continued to add, second Tsuchikage. In the end, he still couldn't let go of his identity as second Tsuchikage. However, Miracle Gerald didn't know the so-called Tsuchikage, nor did he know the value of the title Shadow. Even though he couldn't sense the power, he still kept talking so brazenly. Miracle Gerald was also a little impatient. Don't cause so much trouble, show your true strength and let me enjoy the joy of fighting. Under the provocation of Miracle Gerald, Wu Zheng, who was covered in bandages, adjusted his angle, and then smiled coldly. Dust escape. Original realm stripping technique. In an instant, a chakra flashing with white light flashed by, creating an irregular space in place. Fortunately, Miracle Gerald evaded in time. But even so, he could not completely avoid Wu's attack. Looking at the opportunity in front of him, Gerald activated his ninjutsu without any expression on his face. Unexpectedly, half of Miracle Gerald's body was immediately broken down into atomic-level dust and scattered in the wind. The effect of the perfect holy body middle. God's sanction is indeed extremely powerful. The moment everyone saw Senju Kusanai stand up from the throne, almost everyone looked at Sokyoku Hill. It is worthy of the sanction of God. He indeed has a body like a god. Look, I know this opponent is not simple, but he is still very capable. The light faded, and Kage Barrow still stood intact in front of everyone. Seeing Lee Jieba expression full of disdain, everyone was simply stunned. If such an ability is applied to the battlefield, it will probably cause a devastating blow to one's own lineup. The thunder armor, which was like lightning, turned into a thunder spear and penetrated towards Lee Jieba, who was in the state of 8 pairs of light wings. Look at the weird shape of the 8 pairs of light wings. The hole-shaped white 8 wings on the back, null eyes, can release all things from a long distance, and the body can turn into a spirit to track the opponent. I didn't expect that the opponent in front of me would be so difficult. It was really unexpected. At the same time, the previous generation Raikage on the other side also lost his breath. The intense energy fluctuations caused the Shinigami of the Gotai 13th Division to marvel. Facing the new form of Rage below that he had never seen before, Raikage ignored everything and directly used the previous method to attack. Wu, who was originally extremely calm, finally felt a little surprised at this moment. Raikage's lightning spear hit Rage below's chest with the piercing force of thunder. Even Impure World Reincarnation's predecessor movie was a surprise. His condescending attitude was like that of an immortal who transcended the world. Looking at his missing lower body, Gerald smiled instead of getting angry. According to the original ability, it is immune to physical damage and kaidos. But now it seems that it is even immune to chakra ninjutsu. Gerald, who had half of his body decomposed in an instant, laughed, and then reorganized his body in an instant, and his figure seemed to be even bigger than before. Although it is Senju Kusanai who controls Raikage's body now, the reincarnated Raikage cannot control his body, but his consciousness still exists. Thinking of this, Senju Kusanai also had to stand up. As if feeling Senju Kusanai's gaze, Lee Jieba, who transformed into the 8-winged form, also turned his head slightly and looked sideways, and the two people's eyes happened to meet each other. Faced with such a powerful blow, Lee Jieba was very disdainful. The next second, golden light suddenly appeared, and the power of thunder with infinite pressure was instantly dispelled. Amidst the loud shouts, Lee Jieba did not dodge or evade, opening his chest to welcome the film's attack. This level of power is far beyond what they can understand. Faced with such a powerful attack, Lee Jieba actually did not dodge or dodge, and relied on his strong defense to withstand such an attack. The scene that happened next was even more cognizant to them. How can it not be surprising? Stop looking down on others. After one blow failed to work, he was stopped by a ray. When it bursts out, its momentum is extremely powerful. You dare to offend the gods with your mortal body. I want you to pay the price for your ignorance. Staring proudly, his eyes happened to fall on Lee Jieba. Chapter 384, God-to-God Dialogue. After discovering Senju Starry Night, Raikage ignored his predecessor Raikage and directly used the power of the gods to cast the Shadow Realm, dragging his predecessor Raikage back to the special space with the enhanced Ryatsu of God. In this way, the sealing effect was actually achieved. After eliminating the interference, Lee Jieba took off into the air at this time, and his whole body was suspended in the air. It didn't take long to reach the height of Senju Starry Night. Looking at the Senju Starry Night in front of him, Lee Jieba also asked the question he had always asked. The thing that was neither human nor ghost just now must be your masterpiece, right? I have to say that if you can control Hueco and play with life and death, your strength may be comparable to that of the gods. Let's have a battle between gods and gods. Lee Jieba's tone was calm, neither condescending nor overbearing. He did not speak too highly of himself nor belittle Senju Kusanai. However, Senju Kusanai heard it very harshly. God versus God, are you worthy? It seems that he is facing Senju Kusanai with an equal attitude, neither humble nor arrogant, but it is not because of his high quality. Instead, he felt that Senju Kusanai was not worthy of his contempt at all. In the final analysis, it is just the enlightenment of his self-proclaimed God. This is a kind of creature that regards itself as a superior creature and is arrogant about all so-called enlightenment. Senju Kusanai naturally couldn't stand this gesture. Do you think you are worthy of being called a god? Looking at your ugly appearance, you are just a poor thing being played by Jieba. Are you worthy to be compared with me? As he spoke, Senju Kusanai's gaze became very calm, and his posture was exactly the same as that of Lee Jieba just now. Looking at Senju Kusanai with such indifferent gaze, Concubines was also very angry. Are you looking down on me? You know I am a god. You will pay for your arrogance. Speak. After seeing Senju Kusanai's attitude, Lee Jieba became extremely irritable, and the holes on the 8 pairs of wings were instantly aligned with Senju Kusanai's position. The next second, a rain of energy burst out instantly. The energy that carries the penetrating power of all things is bombarded like a violent wind and rain. The aftermath of the explosion spread one after another, as if forming a light. On the bipolar hill, a terrifying energy barrier erupted with Senju Starry Night as the center. Everyone looked at Senju Kusanai's position and couldn't help but sweat in their hearts. Possessing the absolute penetration attribute of God's penetration, Lee Jieba's penetration blow can even kill gods instantly. If an ordinary person were to withstand such a blow head-on, even if it were a god descending to earth, he would probably not be able to escape the fate of being penetrated. After some indiscriminate bombardment, Jieba finally relieved the anger in his heart. Looking at the smoke-filled Sokyoku Hill, Raikage also showed a happy smile. You are such a humble insect, you dare to despise the gods. This is your fate. Seeing Senju Kusanai being killed instantly by him, Jieba was also preparing to return to the battlefield. However, the next second, the smoke and dust dissipated, and everyone looked away, but they were all shocked by the scene in front of them. Unexpectedly, the Senju Kusanai in front of him is not dead yet. Not only was he not dead, his whole body seemed to be unscathed, with no trace of a fight at all. Amid everyone's exclamations, Lee Jieba also looked back angrily to observe. As a result, I happened to see the Senju Starry Night standing on the throne of the Two Poles Hill with light clouds and breeze. That arrogant attitude seemed to be arrogant. The look he looked at Lee Jieba was even more disdainful. Seeing the shocked Lee Jieba, Senju Kusanai simply smiled and said, "That's it. How dare you call yourself a god? I think you have some misunderstandings about the meaning of gods." As soon as he finished speaking, Senju Kusanai also directly adjusted his eyes to the posture of the blue 6 Magatama Rinnegan. You just want to covet the power of the gods? Today I will show you what a god is. As soon as he finished speaking, Kusanai directly used the secret technique of the Senju clan, Sage Art. The wooden dragon comes to the world. Under the eyes of everyone, a hole instantly appeared in the dense clouds. The sunlight behind him is reflected from the hollow, and the light is enveloped in peace. Ouch! Accompanied by a thundering dragon roar, the deafening sound of rolling thunder came from the sky. The next second, the clouds gathered in the sky, and in an instant, dark clouds came over the city, and the world fell into a dark and dead silence. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, a horned dragon with green eyes and golden eyes slowly descended. The green wooden scales are like natural jade stones, showing a lifelike look while puffing out clouds and mist. Senju Hashirama in the impure world reincarnation state looked at the wooden dragon in front of him and was so surprised that he was speechless. As the god of ninjutsu, Senju Hashirama is also a user of wood style and knows the details of his wood style ninjutsu. Whether it is a Senju Buddha or a wooden dragon, its external image will change accordingly with the user's chakra. Chapter 385, True Divine Power, 6 Paths Middle. Wood Dragon. However, no matter how it changes, it will always follow a unified law. That is, the more powerful the chakra is, the richer the details of the Buddha and wooden dragon will be. Seeing the huge wooden dragon in front of me looks like a real divine dragon, with beard, hair, and horns lifelike. The green scales are shiny and smooth, reflecting the water waves under the sunlight. Such perfect details are simply terrifying. Even Senju Hashirama, the god of ninjutsu, can only look up to him, but cannot hope to surpass him. Although others are not as able to understand the mystery of this ninjutsu as Hashirama, the lifelike dragon is enough to shock everyone. With the blessing of the 6 Magatama Rinnegan, the energy in Senju Kusanai's body is far beyond what simple chakra or Ryatsu can compare with. The new power that combines the Senjutsu chakra and the huge Ryatsu may be more appropriately called the power of the celestial spirit. Driven by this force, the huge trapped dragon directly swallowed the 8 pairs of light-winged Li Jiebluo. This time, even Li Jiebluo himself did not expect that the enemy he was about to face turned out to be such a level monster. The power contained in this wooden dragon is obviously the power of killing gods. This power is similar to the power of his god's sanction. However, the amount of god-slaying power contained in the wooden dragon that Senju Kusanai displayed in front of him was abnormally high, which was simply not comparable to the little power he obtained from Hueco's blessing. Facing the majestic wooden dragon in front of him, Li Jiebluo was too frightened to move at all. The next second, Senju Starry Night's wooden dragon dived straight down, leaving only a green trace in the air. Boom! With a loud noise that shook the sky, the wooden dragon successfully hit Li Jiebluo's light wings. Immediately afterwards, there was an endless shockwave of power, which even broke away the layers of dark clouds. The weather was covered with dark clouds a second ago, and now it turned into clear skies again. Looking at the majestic battlefield just now, everyone's eyes were filled with surprise. Although it is just a wooden dragon, the Ryatsu contained in it can directly tear the Raijbaro in front of him into pieces. This is simply too scary. The Quincy's of the Invisible Empire looked at the wooden dragon that Senju Kusanai had just used, and their expressions changed drastically. I thought that many of the captains of the Gotai 13th Division were simply mediocre. But what happened to the Senju Starry Night who suddenly appeared in front of me? How come there are no relevant records of the sacred sentinels lurking in the shadows? Just when everyone was confused, a huge black hand fell from the sky and directly smashed Senju Kusanai's wooden dragon. Captain Litbaro. You, damn it! Astonishingly, it is the left hand of the Spirit King. Are you sure this is still the Spirit King's hand? What's going on with this familiar Ryatsu? While thinking, Penny and Paka's sacred sword Sky had already shot towards Senju Kusanai's face. Such a person, even with just one left hand, is not something that ordinary people can easily touch. Whether they are living people, dead people, or even non-human things, they can be controlled. This huge palm can actually talk. Not only does he have the ability to speak, but he can also fight as a Quincy. The most important thing was that he was shocked by the left hand of the Spirit King in front of him. Unforgivable. Look down. After a few intermittent words, Penida Paka also unfolded his own divine destruction as a Quincy. Look down on Penida Paka. Why did the Soul King's left hand turn into a Quincy? He speaks like a child learning to speak, even to the point of being a bit unclear. In the past, Penida Paka also used these nerves to control the wall, which is really incredible. If once it is contaminated with the scattered nerve threads of Penida Paka, it will basically lose the ability to resist. You must know that the Spirit King's left hand has terrifying abilities. You must know that the Spirit King is a real god, maintaining the stability of the 3 realms. This is incredible. Everyone was amazed when they saw this. It is surprisingly the Ryatsu of the Soul King, and it is a similar existence to the Ryatsu of Jushiro Juzenro. Some of the more senior captains have sensed this person's Ryatsu. What's happening here? Please give me flowers. 0. Everyone simply couldn't believe their eyes. Its role can be called the pillar of the 3 realms. Spirit King, especially Penida Paka, who is the left hand of the Spirit King, can be controlled through nerves just by contaminating other objects with his spirit. If it is the Spirit King's left hand, it means that he can use part of the Spirit King's power. Along with a pure Ryatsu, the blue arrow shot directly towards Senju Kusanai's position. His eyes were arrogant, but the left hand of the Spirit King in front of him was instantly angered. After guessing this, everyone started talking about it. What on earth is going on? Looking at Soul King's left hand, Senju Kusanai did not intend to fight in person, but returned to the throne of Sokyoku Hill and sat down calmly. Chapter 386, Get to know the clone. Seeing the incoming nerve arrows, Senju Kusanai really wanted to try the feeling of being controlled by nerves himself. Thinking of this, Senju Kusanai immediately cast the shadow clone technique. However, others did not see Senju Kusanai's operation just now because the movement was too fast. Everyone only saw Penida's nerve arrow hitting Senju Kusanai's body. Seeing such a scene, other people around were simply shocked. Especially Kuretsuchi Mayuri, the captain of Division 12 and known as the director of the Technology Development Bureau, was extremely shocked. Oops, the enemy's attack can force the implant into any other object, thereby achieving the ability to completely control behavior. Commander-in-Chief Senju has obviously fallen victim to the enemy's ability, so the situation on the entire battlefield may be in danger. Thinking of this, Kuretsuchi Mayuri couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat, and felt panicked. After hearing Kuretsuchi Mayuri's concerns, others involuntarily showed shocked expressions on their faces. You must know that the strength Senju Kusanai showed just now is absolutely extraordinary. Especially the terrifying wooden dragon that is enough to kill Lee Jieba in an instant. The ultimate coercion will make people tremble just thinking about it. However, this level of strength is just the ability that Senju Kusanai showed casually, seemingly doing a very trivial thing. If this can show such a terrifying effect, and if Penida is under control and attacks with all his strength, what kind of disaster will the entire Quiet Spirit Court face? Thinking of this, everyone really didn't dare to think about it anymore. Facing opponents who are like gods, they are obviously a little stretched. Compared with the fear of those in Jinglingting, the holy soldiers of Yingxiang Empire became extremely excited. They had also witnessed the strength that Senju Kusanai had just shown. You must know that Lige Barrow is the captain of the personal guard personally appointed by His Majesty Yuhabush. Its strength is far beyond what ordinary people can match. However, Senju Kusanai can easily destroy Lee Jieba in God Sanction mode. This kind of strength is definitely far beyond what ordinary people can imagine. This heaven-defying ability is now successfully controlled by Penida, and the Invisible Country's combat effectiveness has obviously also improved in quality. Just when everyone was thinking about their own thoughts, Penida made a thought in his mind and controlled the nerves of Kusanai in his hand to prepare to summon the magic dragon just now. However, under Penida's control, although Senju Starry Night was able to move according to its own control, it was never able to exert its power just now. At this moment, a picture that shocked everyone appeared. In full view of everyone, another Senju Kusanai appeared. Seeing everyone's extremely shocked look, Senju Kusanai also expressed his surprise and sneered, "Haven't you ever seen such a thing as a clone? What's all the fuss about?" While talking, Senju Kusanai wandered up to Penida and smiled disdainfully. "Is this what it feels like to be controlled by nerves? That's really disgusting. You shouldn't be complacent about controlling my clone, right?" Facing Senju Kusanai's ridicule, Penida was also shocked. Seeing the Senju Starry Night in front of him, Penida only felt that his IQ was insulted, and the next second he heard a whining sound. Just kidding. Playing Penida. That's unforgivable. Although there is no mouth visible, this huge palm can still make sounds, but the speech is a little unclear. After hearing Penida's low murmur, everyone was also paying attention to the next battle. In the meantime, Penida directly controlled the clone of Senju Starry Night and launched an attack on the real Senju Starry Night. Facing Penida's attack, Senju Kusanai also shook his head and said he was speechless. "It seems that your idea is really naive, and it is in line with the setting of your single-threaded brain." After hearing Senju Kusanai's words, Penida's CPU was going to smoke. Penida, who was originally simple-minded, obviously did not understand what Senju Starry Night meant, and continued to control the clone to attack Senju Starry Night. However, the next second, Senju Kusanai directly cancelled the effect of the clone. The clone controlled by Penida disappeared on the spot, and the scattered nerves withered and died instantly. Faced with such an effect in 1.1, Penida didn't even think about it, and directly launched the neural arrows again. It was still a familiar formula and a familiar attack mode. The first blow failed to hit, let alone the second one. Senju Kusanai looked at such an attack with disdain and remained motionless, as if he had given up resistance. Everyone was very anxious when they saw this. Be careful of the opponent's attacks. Never attempt a frontal hard-on. We don't know the other party's abilities yet, so we don't dare to be careless. All the members of the Jinglingting let out panicked sighs. Chapter 387, The Power of the Spiritual King. Penida. Seeing the nerve arrows speeding towards Senju Kusanai again, Senju Kusanai just stood proudly with his hands behind his back. There was no movement on his body, as if he really didn't intend to dodge. Just when everyone was extremely worried, the nerve arrow disappeared inexplicably. To be precise, it turned into purple-black powder and disappeared. Everyone looked over and saw a one-eyed old man wearing white clothes and a crown. Surprisingly, it is the former Mundo Emperor, the Baraggan Ruizan gang. "I am the king of Mundo. The 2000th Sword of Lord Thousand Suns Starry Night says an army going south." Enter Baraggan Ruizan. He held the huge sighing axe in his hand, and scanned the entire battlefield with one eye. He really has the power of a supreme king. As if feeling that his attack failed, Penida's state became even more distorted. 17. The huge palm began to twist crazily in midair, and the direction of the fingers became more and more twisted. "Unforgivable, unforgivable." As he spoke, several crazy arrows once again bombarded Baraggan's position. However, Faced with Penida's indiscriminate bombardment, Baraggan didn't take it seriously at all. The sighing axe was held in his hand, but a moment later, those nerve arrows turned into invisible residue. Seeing the sacred sword destroyed into ashes, Baraggan also showed a look of disdain. It's ridiculous. Even with your strength, you are disrespectful to Senju-sama. Let you taste my power. As he spoke, Baraggan turned around the sighing axe in his hand. The giant axe that was originally on his shoulder was now upside down, and then came the familiar words of liberation. Decay, Skeleton Emperor. With the words of liberation, the multi-layered crown on Baraggan's head became more dazzling, and the one-eyed face and body turned into a skull shape, and the whole person looked like a skeleton that had been silent for many years. Wearing boots, the whole body is covered with black flames, and a long silver chain hangs from the corner of the crown, like a chain from hell. After the second evolution of Return to Blade, the effect of the first Return to Blade now actually begins to contain the black and purple flames of hell. After returning to the blade, the liberating power of the sword burst out, and the powerful pressure instantly attracted the attention of others around him. Seeing the monster that suddenly appeared in front of them, the Shinigami of the Jingling also exuded awe. How is this going? Is this also Commander Senju's plan? This powerful Ryatsu even surpasses the captain level. It's simply terrifying. Not only that, looking at the ability of all things to decay just now, it is simply heaven-defying. A monster of this level can be defeated. Commander Senju's Starry Night is simply too powerful. Seeing the death of Baraggan, the morale of the Shinigami was greatly boosted. Being able to possess such a level of combat power has greatly increased Jingling's chances of winning. After everyone's horrified looks, Baraggan sneered. This is the ability I am proud of, the Field of Decay. If you don't want to be swallowed by my death aura, I advise you not to get close to my battle. After some instructions, Baraggan looked at Penida not far away. Although the opponent was huge, Baraggan did not panic at all. No matter how huge the body is, when faced with oneself, it is nothing more than a death's eye that can completely decay. However, after Penida saw Baraggan's disdain, his whole mentality changed drastically. An extremely restless mentality instantly ignited anger. How dare you underestimate me? How dare anyone look down on Penida? Penida won't let you go. Penida wants you to see Penida's power. A big hand became more and more excited as he spoke, and finally the whole arm began to tremble. However, in the blink of an eye, Penida's Ryatsu improved significantly. Let you see my perfect body. Me, Penida, I am 283's most powerful Penida. Along with a shocking roar, white wings will appear behind Penida, which are sacred feathers composed of infinite Ryatsu. In this state, the ability to enforce will be significantly enhanced. I think Penida used the ability to enforce to destroy Kurarigafion's life fence in the state of the holy body. The ability to enforce after strengthening is Penida's true strength. When everyone saw Penida's death, they all expressed surprise and uncertainty. What kind of monster is this? A huge hand with arms actually sprouted a pair of feathered wings. This scene is really too weird. How could there be such an exaggerated creature in the world? Is this the power of the Spirit King? This is absolutely terrible. Everyone said something to each other, with expressions of indescribable surprise. Chapter 388, King of Commando, Baraggan. However, facing Penida like this, Baraggan looked disdainful. Ants will always be ants, and no one can resist aging. Whether it's a person or a thing, even Ryatsu or anything else. Even if you are a god or a devil, treat everyone equally in the face of aging. Along with Baraggan's roar, a sigh of death swept towards Penida. The ability to force aging and decay instantly swallowed up everything around it. The huge and bulky Penida would never be able to dodge such a blow. At this time, everyone saw a very magical scene. Penida used two of his fingers to break off one of his fingers and threw it away. Under the size of that behemoth, even one finger is extremely huge. However, things are far from being as simple as imagined. I saw that the finger that had separated from Penida grew instantly, and in just a blink of an eye, it grew to its original world. At this moment, Death's Eye also successfully touched the newly appeared huge palm. Seeing such a scene at this moment, everyone's expressions were already shocked, but the matter was far from over. Seeing Penida's bleeding spot forming a new finger, the wound was basically healed. The next second, Penida once again broke the finger that just appeared. Very similar to the situation that just occurred, the fingers separated from the main body once again turned into the same giant thing as the main body. And not only that, the clone-like Penida that just appeared has the same super regenerative ability as the main body. Such an ability is simply invincible. Faced with this situation, Baraggan is not panicking for the time being, because his Death's Eye can completely decompose these clones into decaying dust, and finally collapse. With this thought in his mind, Baraggan suddenly discovered an important situation. After Penida came into contact with the infinite decaying power of the Death's Eye, it didn't immediately scatter into ashes and collapse. After the breath of decay came into contact with Penida's clone, although it also had the effect of decay and aging, however, this effect actually far exceeds the current energy limit. Penida's body is actually the left hand of the Spirit King, which is extremely powerful. Other than that, The most obvious ability is high-speed regeneration. The current decay speed of Baraggan cannot even keep up with the opponent's high-speed regeneration. Baraggan was dumbfounded when he saw such a scene. Unexpectedly, although my own decay ability can overcome the natural laws that all things cannot refuse, in the end, it can't match the speed of other people's high-speed regeneration. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened. Just now, the rubble stained with blood because of Penida's broken finger seemed to have come to life. Even the bloodline that fell on top controlled the huge land and began to float in midair. Those originally inanimate objects seemed to have turned into monsters that could move. Everyone else was sweating when they saw this. They didn't expect Penida in front of them to be so tyrannical. If the bloodline begins to expand as the battle continues, wouldn't everything around it become a tool that Penida can control? Not only that, if you are accidentally contaminated with this bloodline during the battle, your entire person will also be controlled by Penida. Thinking of this, everyone's expressions also fell into panic. While everyone was panicking, Penida also let out a burst of unbridled laughter. Exclamation mark. Penida, the best. Penida is Hueco's strongest guard. Penida is going to kill you all. As he spoke, Penida's big hand began to swing towards Baraggan's position. That huge slap flew through the air, setting off a violent gust of wind. One of the hands still bears the corrosion of death's sigh. The high-speed regeneration ability and the effects of aging and decay can perfectly offset it. At this moment, Baraggan also lost his breath. Can't even my death's eye make you feel the power of decay? As a low-level creature without any intelligence, it's really sad. With a cold snort, Baraggan directly waved his axe of destruction to resist Penida's attack. The huge palms lined up on the axe of destruction and they made a clear sound. When, surprisingly, it was the sound of metal hitting. Unexpectedly, the huge arm that looked like flesh and blood had the hardness of metal. The rate of corrosion will inevitably be so slow. Seeing this, Beiji's breath suddenly sank. Now he finally knew why Senju Kusanai wanted them to force the second stage to return to the sword. It seems that if you want to fight with your current ability, you really have a low chance of winning. However, the improvement after the second level of return is completely different. Chapter 389, Decay, Nothingness, or Dissipate. Looking at high-speed regeneration's hands and arms in front of him, Baraggan also made a decision. Sad creatures dare to call themselves gods. Let me show you what a true god is today. After sighing, Balafa directly activated the second stage of returning to the blade. The original purple-black flame instantly turned into the color from the blood pool of purgatory, so red that it made people tremble. The spreading rotten breath was instantly absorbed into Baraggan's body. The golden multiple crowns now turned into bone jade crowns. Demonic tentacles shot upwards from the dense white bones. The unparalleled terrifying pressure makes people instantly frightened. Penida, who was still complacent a moment ago, paused for a moment now. It seems that this monster's mind is still not very good after all. However, others are not as clumsy as accompanying you. Looking at the red blood skeleton emperor who suddenly appeared in front of you. The Shinigami in the Serenity Garden also couldn't believe their eyes. The red skull emperor of 407 in front of me seems to be more suitable for the name Shinigami than these Shinigami. Especially the pressure from the sky was so oppressive that they couldn't breathe. That's the effect of Invisible Ryatsu. This is also a special effect that Baraggan only has after performing the second stage of return. You must know that the effect of the second stage return blade is similar to some kind of evolution, and the strength is equivalent to the captain's Bankai. Ryatsu has made a qualitative breakthrough. Looking at the opponent in front of him, Baraggan still had a very contemptuous look in his eyes and said jokingly, I heard that your ability is high-speed regeneration. As long as the rate of aging and decay is fast enough, even the effect of high-speed regeneration is completely useless. Upon thinking of this, Baraggan also smiled coldly and waved the axe of destruction in his hand again, with the blade pointed directly in Penida's direction. After taking a breath, he said coldly, with the dead scream, along with an ethereal sound. The huge Ryatsu instantly took on the form of a death tornado. Yun's energy with the power of withering instantly engulfed Penida's two clones. The whole process happened in a flash of lightning. Before others could even react, two Penidas in front of them had been eliminated. The speed is staggering. This time, even Senju Kusanai, who was watching the battle on Shuangjai Hill, was amazed. I didn't expect Baraggan to have such strength. Penida, who was originally incorruptible, was now crushed by Huai in the blink of an eye. The difference between before and after is too big. In fact, Penida, who was on the battlefield at this moment, also looked in shock. Although his IQ is not high, Penida, as the Soul King's left hand, also inherited a slight power of the Soul King. Penida, who is spiritual, naturally knows the feeling of fear. If the previous Baraggan still made people want to fight, the Baraggan after the second stage of return at this moment is definitely not something that Penida can deal with. Especially the ability to age and decay very quickly is something that almost no one can avoid. His own clone, Kabj, had exactly the same ability as himself, but those two clones were swallowed up instantly. This also means that one's own body with the same power will meet the same fate. Penida, who has a low IQ, still relies on instinctive judgment for some of his actions. Survival is the greatest instinct of living things. Seeing Penida's expression retreating, Baraggan confirmed his previous opinion even more. Ants are just ants. Although you have the power of the Spirit King, you are no different from ordinary ants. The reason why you are fighting here is simply to prove the value of your existence. However, life has no meaning. The right thing to do when you waste your time is to please yourself as much as possible. With your current strength, you are not enough to be my opponent. Fighting with you is no fun either. That's it for today's warm-up activities. As soon as he finished speaking, Baraggan's breath suddenly sank, and he pointed at Penida in front of him. The decadent aura rushed out instantly and swept away in the direction of Penida. Wherever the aura touches, it is a mess, and all people who are contaminated by such aura will turn into bones in an instant, and then completely dissipate. The power that contained absolute decay swept over like a broken bamboo. Penida was completely surrounded in an instant. The next second, a feeling like hell flooded every nerve in his body. Penida was so frightened that he froze in place. Is it all over? Has this form died? No, I cannot be reconciled. Penida, am an independent personality? Can't a miracle happen after all? Looking at Baraggan in front of him, Penida finally disappeared into the air. After the battle here ended, miraculous Gerald on the other side seemed to sense something. Chapter 390, The Heart of the Spiritual King. Miracle Gerald. What's happening here? Did someone kill the Soul King's left hand? First it's Lige Barrow, and then it's Penida. It seems that today's battle is not optimistic. Miracle Gerald, known as the strongest Quincy, also expressed emotion at this moment. Gerald Valkyrie, whose holy text is and whose ability is Miracle, is one of the 4 members of the Hueco Guards and was once the heart of the Soul King. Like the Spirit King's left hand, Gerald, who was once the Spirit King's heart, also used the Spirit King's power. Although he was in a hard fight at this moment, he did not suffer any life-threatening injuries. The mask decorated like wings showed no expression, with medium-length golden hair on both sides, and the whole person looked slightly mysterious. Wearing a red cape and black trousers, and armor on the front of his limbs, his true appearance under the mask is an olive branch crown on his head. A pair of epsilon-shaped black marks extend from both sides of the forehead to under the eyelids. This is also the source of his strength. As the person who values the most honor among the 4 members of the guards, he is outspoken, bold, and aggressive. He originally planned to use this battle as a hunting ground for himself and his companions. He was originally going to strive for maximum glory through his own strength, but he didn't expect that his companions would be so vulnerable. Thinking of this, Gerald's expression was filled with indescribable joy, and he even laughed out loud at the end. Ah, that's really ridiculous. As His Majesty Hueco's personal bodyguards, these people are really weak. As expected, only I, Gerald Valkyrie, am His Majesty Hueco's most trustworthy warrior. At this moment, an invisible force instantly penetrated Gerald's chest. Dust escape middle. Original cutting. An extremely pure bloodline elimination technique appeared instantly, and a huge chakra instantly disintegrated Gerald's chest into atomic-level dust. This is similar to Baraggan's power of decay. However, Gerald just looked down at the big hole in his chest, and his entire expression became very disdainful. He looked at the initiator of this attack, his predecessor Tsukage, who was covered in bandages. Don't think that just because you have cleaned up a few trash fishes, you can act arrogantly in front of me and Gerald. I am not as weak as them. Let you see my energy. Following Gerald's roar, the place where his chest was pierced a moment ago actually grew hard again. Gerald, who is known as the Heart of the Soul King, is also feeling very interesting at this moment. He himself is the Heart of the Spirit King, but he didn't expect that the enemy would attack the position of his heart. This is really ironic. However, after some mocking, Gerald also directly triggered his ability, Miracle. With the activation of his ability, the penetrating wound on Gerald's chest disappeared, and his body suddenly doubled in size. This is his power as the bodyguard of Hueco. The holy word Miracle. Gerald, who possesses this ability, is not just a simple self-healing. His ability is a special ability that can transform his own negative situation into a positive situation. It is very different from medical treatment or self-healing ability. Please give me flowers. Those medical abilities are more similar to physical treatment, while Miracle Gerald's abilities are abilities that act on specific events. For example, the ability will be triggered only if you are injured, trapped, dead or other negative nature status. After the ability is triggered, the original negative emotions will be restored immediately, but damage will be restored to the original intact state, and even if you die, you will be reborn. However, the effect of the miracle goes far beyond that. Those damaging skills that have been used on him or events that will lead to death or have already happened will be stored in Gerald's body as the power of Miracle Gerald. This is also the reason why Gerald's body suddenly grew bigger. A fatal injury made Gerald, who should have died, become more powerful. This is the power of miracles. However, just when Gerald was still immersed in the joy of strengthening his strength, a terrifying sword intent fell straight down from the sky and covered the earth. In the shocked eyes of everyone, Zaraki Kenpaki, the captain of the 11th Division and known as the strongest Kenpaki, appeared in front of everyone. The strong sword intent just now was the power of Zaraki Kenpaki's Zanpei Kuto no Zarashi. At this moment, Zaraki Kenpaki's whole body was red, obviously entering the Bankai state. Zanpei Kuto, who was originally the strongest in the physics department, has now become a semi-regular Zanpei Kuto. The broken giant blade seemed to have the ability to cut through everything. No matter how hard it is, even if it is a rule-based thing, it will be split into two without exception. Miraculous Gerald, who was so complacent just a moment ago, was cut into two parts by such an attack. Chapter 391, The Power of Miracles is Invincible. Miracle Gerard, who was cut in half by Zaraki Kenpaki, slowly fell like a giant falling. However, the matter was far from over. Taking advantage of the opportunity when Gerald was split into two, Hitsugaya Toshiro, who had transformed into a young man, took advantage of the situation and read out Zanpei Kuto's emancipation language. Bankai Digran Hiren Maru. Along with Bankai's words of liberation, Hitsugaya Winter Lion's whole body instantly erupted with a biting cold Ryatsu, and the surrounding temperature seemed to drop below zero in an instant. Hiren Maru, known as the strongest parallel Zanpei Kuto, is standing on the entire battlefield in the form of an ice dragon. Looking at the two halves of Gerald slowly landing in the sky, Hitsugaya Winter Lion swung his sword to freeze them without thinking. 1,000-year ice prison. Following a loud shout, dozens of huge icicles exuding a deep chill completely sealed Gerald in ice. After making preparations, Hitsugaya's eyes suddenly became unusually cold. The whole person's aura has also undergone earth-shaking changes. Because his body shape has changed into a youthful state, Bankai is completely different at this moment from before. Today's Hitsugaya Winter Lion is a fully developed version of Digran Hiren Maru Bankai. The number of ice skills that can be used is also much more than before. After the effect of the 1,000-year ice prison appeared, Hitsugaya Winter Lion jumped up directly. His body was stuck between the two half parts of Gerald. He frowned and snorted coldly. The four realms freeze. After being completely liberated, Digran Hiren Maru can instantly freeze all water, fire, and wind in the space within the four realms. This ability to freeze is the ability to freeze everything between heaven and earth from the inside out, including souls and Ryatsu and even all Kaido and special abilities. Looking at Gerald, who was in a huge state that turned into a glacier in front of him, Hitsugaya finally breathed a sigh of relief. No matter how strong the regeneration ability is, it ultimately requires Ryatsu or other abilities as the basis to achieve it. My four-realm freezing not only affects entities in reality, but can also freeze all abilities within the range. Your regeneration ability will be frozen and invalidated before the entity is frozen. I guess this is also your final end, right? Hitsugaya Toshiro looked at Gerald in front of him, smiled sadly, and sighed. If miracles happen frequently, they shouldn't be called miracles. It is precisely because the probability of occurrence is very small and the hope is very slim that it can highlight the preciousness of miracles. How can a person like you experience the excitement of surviving a desperate situation after waiting for a miracle? Break into pieces, mortal. With a sigh, Miracle Gerald finally turned into tiny ice flowers, flying and scattered in Conchin. The jingling court, which had a clear sky just a moment ago, now had a considerable amount of snow due to Gerald's fragmentation. On top of this severe battlefield, there is an even more ruthless flavor. After seeing Gerald turn into snowflakes, Hitsugaya Toshiro was about to turn around and leave, but the next second he could no longer move his gaze. Because he suddenly found that Gerald, whom he had just dealt with, suddenly appeared in the hazy snowy scene. The huge body doubled again, reminding the originally huge Gerald that he suddenly turned into an ancient giant that could cover the sky and the sun. Looking at Hitsugaya Toshiro who had just killed him instantly, Gerald's expression was full of disdainful mockery. Ignorant boy, you don't know the power of gods at all. I am the strongest person in the Hueco gods. Yet you have such a contemptuous attitude towards my strength. It's simply inexcusable. It seems that you don't know my ability yet, so let me explain it to you out of mercy. My name is Gerald Valkyrie. The holy word M means miracle. The ability of miracles is not the rapid healing you imagine, nor is it super speed rebirth. Let me give you a hint. The ability of miracles subverts events. Every negative influence on me will be miraculously transformed into a way that strengthens me. In other words, the greater the damage I receive, the greater the increase in my strength. No matter what kind of blow you inflict on me through any situation or ability, in the face of my miracle, it will become my strength. 3.6 It's the gods. With the last roar, Gerald, who was as big as a mountain, waved his hand casually. The big hand that covered the clouds and the sun seemed to be a divine punishment falling from the sky, driving the roar of the wind, and struck down towards the position of Jinglingting with thunderous force. If such a blow hits Jinglingting, I am afraid that the fat Jinglingting will be turned into a complete ruin. Faced with such an attack, Hitsugaya Toshiro and Zaraki Kenpaki were instantly helpless. At this moment, a familiar voice came. Scatter, Senbonzakura. Chapter 392, The Invincible Susanata Buddha. The familiar voice resounded throughout the entire jingling court. It seemed not loud, but the calm and low voice was reminiscent of the battlefield in the entire jingling court. The next second, the overwhelming sakura flowers swept in like pink waves, holding Gerald's huge palm in the air. However, the mountain-like Gerald not only changed in size, but also reached a new height in strength. Under the urging of Byakuya Kakiki, Senbon Sakura also has extremely powerful experience, and the pink sakura flower that has been turned into pink for thousands of years is like a billion sharp blades. However, even so, he could not resist Gerald's overwhelming hand. Seeing that his Senbon Sakura was unable to resist such an attack, Byakuya Kakiki no longer remained reserved. Bankai Senbon Sakura Keijiashi 22. With a word of liberation, Senbon Sakura, which was originally like a wave, instantly exploded with infinite power. Thousands of billions of blades Bankai almost at the same time, and the power they can burst out instantly repels Gerald's minister. Seeing his attack being blocked like this, Gerald's expression was slightly moved. Ha 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 ha. The captain is indeed the captain. He can actually resist my careless swipe with his all-out Bankai. Your strength is really amazing. Although Gerald's words were words of praise, they also sounded very ironic to others. Byakuya Kakiki's Bankai just now did cost him too much power. However, even with such an all-out attack, it only slightly repelled Gerald's attack. The key to the problem is that Gerald's big wave of his hand was indeed an understatement, as if he didn't use any effort. From this point of view, the difference in strength between the two sides is indeed very large. Facing the behemoth in front of them, the Shinigami of Susanata were filled with despair. Not to mention killing him, even just causing him harm will strengthen his strength. However, just when everyone was about to fall into despair, a strange voice came. Sage art. True several thousand hands. After the strengthening of 6 paths Rinnegan, Senju Hashirama's strength has also made a qualitative breakthrough. Although the details are not as lifelike as the wooden dragon of Senju Starry Night, the enhanced true several thousand hands have a larger size. The wood-style Buddha that fell from the sky was even bigger than Gerald's reminder. One Gerald and one true several thousand hands, both of them stood at opposite ends of the jingling court, but the entire sky was completely covered by the two. Seeing this sudden change, all the Shinigami in the Susanata looked at them in disbelief. The two sides of the battle are like two huge mountains. This is the first time for the Shinigami of Susanata to encounter such a situation. I originally thought that Gerald's size was large enough, but I didn't expect that this inconspicuous ninja brought by Senju Kusanai would actually have such terrifying abilities. What is this? Is it the Senju Buddha? To be able to create such a huge Senju Buddha is truly worthy of the leadership of Commander-in-Chief Senju. It seems that it is very wise for us to choose Senju Kusanai as the Commander-in-Chief. I didn't expect this opponent to be so powerful. He could even kill the captain. If it weren't for the Commander-in-Chief Senju Kusanai, I'm afraid our entire Jingling Ting would have suffered. Thinking back to Light Baro who first appeared, to Penida later, and now Gerald. The abilities of these people simply exceed the limits that ordinary people can understand. Fortunately, there is a subordinate of Senju Kusanai, otherwise this battle may be difficult to fight. Many Shinigami present looked at the exaggeratedly large Buddha in front of them, and they were obviously surprised and excited. However, Gerald looked disdainful when facing the Senju Buddha who surpassed him in size. Although it is not small in size, it is an ordinary wooden statue. You actually want to rely on this wooden statue to fight against me, Gerald the Miracle? What a joke. While speaking, Gerald waved his hand directly and went towards the direction of the thousand Buddhas to kill the 51st class. If that unparalleled force were to hit the Senju Buddha directly, it would probably break the wood into pieces. However, at this time, Uchiha Hamadaro appeared. Forbidden technique. Suzu. With the use of Suzu, the wood-style Senju Buddha directly transformed into Suzu, which can be called the strongest defense. The purple Suzuno armor instantly enveloped the entire Senju Buddha. The Karasutengu armor appeared instantly, and the entire size also became larger. After the assembly is completed, the Senju Buddha has a completely new form. The Senju Buddha, which was originally like a mountain, now steadily suppressed Miracle Gerald's size, especially the complete Suzu with the Karasutengu armor, turning the originally ordinary wood-style statue into a terrifying god full of power. Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Hamadara stood side by side on top of the Buddha, with long-lost smiles on their faces. Chapter 393, Gerald, the Last Evolution. Thinking back to the last Susanata Buddha, it seems very far away from now. A long time ago, there was a legend about the Susanata Buddha and the two men who destroyed the 4 kingdoms. This was definitely not an exaggeration back then. It was precisely because the other 4 countries recognized the strength of the two that they agreed to a short truce. However, at this moment, after being strengthened by the 6 paths Rinnegan, the power of the Susanata Buddha has also shown a geometric increase. Its power and size are not the same as before. Facing the huge palm slapped by Gerald, Susanna Daibatsu directly faced it head-on. Boom. When the two came into contact, a huge pressure was generated, and the aftermath of the power spread instantly, forming a powerful wind around them. All the fighting parties around were affected by this powerful residual power, so they had to suspend the fighting. The captains of Jingalingting looked at the towering giant thing above their heads and felt extremely moved in their hearts. Not to mention Senju Kusanai himself. Even the ninjas under his command have such heaven-defying strength that even their so-called captains can only fall behind. I didn't expect Commander Senju's strength to be so terrifying. How did two such tyrannical people surrender? With such combat effectiveness as a helper, victory in this battle is within sight. Everyone was talking to each other, and they were even more in awe of Senju Kusanai. However, when Miracle Gerald faced such a behemoth, he was still a little bit surprised. Obviously, he didn't expect that the other party could possess such terrifying strength. However, his current state is already comparable to that of gods, and he is worthy of any opponent. What's more, he also has the invincible ability of miracles. Even if the opponent can kill him instantly, he will be able to be resurrected and become stronger in the end. With this thought, Miracle Gerald became even more disdainful. I have to say that although you also have amazing power, it's a pity that I, as your opponent, am even more invincible. As an affirmation to you, let me use up the power of the holy body to defeat you. Complete the Eucharist. The power of God. With a flash of light, the entire world was filled with powerful Ryatsu. With the activation of the holy body, the mountain-like body indeed underwent significant changes. The original mask took on a new form, with a protective mask appearing on the head that only exposed the eyes and part of the mouth, which looked extremely weird. Black lines appear on the shoulders that extend to the arms, and opposite white lines on a black background appear on the lower body. These lines seem to draw a special totem symbol that symbolizes the 10 kinds of supreme authority. A pair of angel wings sprouted from the back, which were similar to the state of light blown as God's sanction. They also appeared on the back as wings of light. He holds a holy sword with a ray-shaped hilt in his right hand, and a sun shield with protruding spikes attached to his left hand. The whole image looks like a divine weapon descended from heaven. Repeatedly is the reincarnation of the god of war. At this moment, Gerald's strength has greatly increased, and he can condense high-density spiritual particles from the top of the Sword of Hope, which is powerful enough to break metal, break stone, and destroy the world. Let me show you my true strength. Even if I die, I will take the sword for God. As he spoke, Gerald's Sword of Hope, which was as huge as a high-rise building, was raised above his head and slashed directly in the direction of Suzu Daibatsu. Yun carries infinite spiritual power that seems to be able to distort the surrounding space. In the process of falling, the sword's wail suddenly exploded, and the sound seemed to be able to penetrate people's eardrums. However, just such a sword containing the power of thunder actually made a sound of metal collision when looking at Susanna Daibatsu. Ding! Then came the golden light of electric sparks. The infinite power exploded instantly, and the surrounding space seemed to be experiencing endless agitation. The huge force rebounded, allowing Gerald's Sword of Hope to bounce back successfully. Looking at the scene in front of him, Gerald's expression became very surprised. What's happening here? Can you resist my Sword of Hope? This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Know that my Sword of Hope is the weapon of the gods. Oh, Gerald, it's the god who comes, with good money. With hysterical shouts, Gerald waved the giant sword in his hand again to launch an attack. However, at this moment, Senju Hashirama and Uekai Hamadara were also the first to launch the attack. Facing the gazes of others around him, Uekai Hamadara directly activated the illusion in his eyes. Gerald's entire movement froze in midair for an instant, and then the Shinsu-raised Susanna Daibatsu began to launch an unprecedented attack. Sage Art. Become a Buddha on the top. With a loud roar, Senju Hashirama directly controlled the entire wood-style Buddha transformed from true several thousand hands, condensing all the weight on 1,000 wood-style fists, and able to release 1,000 sanctions at the same time in an instant. Chapter 394, Miracle, Eternal. The continuous wood-style Senju is like a machine gun raining bullets, but it is expressed in the image of a fist. The power of the continuous bombardment is also extremely huge. Each fist can destroy mountains and meteorites, and its power is enough to open mountains and seas. It is thought that the original Valley of the End was created by Senju Hashirama's top transformation Buddha's heavy blow. Now, with the blessing of Suzu, the lethality that true several thousand hands can create has been greatly enhanced. Thousands of punches attacking Gerald were also taking turns bombing at this moment. Boom 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 boom. The sounds of explosions continued one after another, and the aftermath of power permeated the entire jingling court. Facing the true several thousand hands Susanai Buddha in front of him, Gerald was obviously a little unable to resist. I didn't expect that the Susanoo Daibatsu in front of me could be as powerful as it is now. It is really difficult for ordinary people to realize it. Feeling the continuous attacks, Gerald 067 secretly complained. If it weren't for the miracle His Majesty Hueco bestowed upon me, I'm afraid I would be helpless to fight back. When faced with such terrifying power, seeing the machine gun-like attacks of thousands of fists, Gerald was also distressed. Continuous pains came from the body, but he had no power to fight back. Seeing that his defense was completely flawless, it was only a matter of time before his defense was broken. A moment later, the Susanoo Daibatsu wrapped in the Karasutengu armor directly killed Gerald to pieces. When other people saw this, They were simply in disbelief, especially the holy soldiers of the Invisible Empire. Several members of the guards were killed one after another, which had a huge blow to their morale. I thought Miracle Gerald could save the situation through the power of miracles. However, I didn't expect that there was such a heaven-defying existence among the other party. It's simply outrageous. Will this battle still end in failure? Everyone in the Invisible Empire fell into an atmosphere of decadence. Contrary to those from the Invisible Empire, the Shinigami of Sirte all have high morale. One moment there was the wooden dragon of Senju Starry Night, and now it is the Susanai Buddha of wood-style true several thousand hands. Such ability is simply heaven-defying. The captains who wanted to challenge Senju Starry Night also felt lucky at this moment. Fortunately, I didn't compete with Senju Kusanai for the position of Commander-in-Chief before. Otherwise, I really don't know how to die. With this idea, everyone was still frightened. Fortunately, Senju Kusanai is on his side, otherwise it would be really difficult to deal with it. However, just when everyone thought that the overall situation was decided, the battlefield at this moment once again underwent earth-shaking changes. Miraculously, Gerald, who was instantly killed a moment ago, stood up again at this moment, facing the scene in front of them. Everyone was also very surprised. How is this going? Isn't Gerald already killed? Why can you still stand up? This is impossible. How can there really be people in the world who cannot be killed? This is horrible. The people here at Shinigami began to lose their morale, because from the situation in front of him, it seemed that Gerald was really immortal, and Lialing could become more domineering every time. If this continues, it seems that the power of the entire Soul Society cannot compete with this person. Even if his previous strength was not as good as Gerald's, after the latter has grown and evolved countless times, he will eventually reach a certain level. As long as the power grows enough to instantly kill all the power of the entire Jingling Court, then who else in the world can stop Gerald? Everyone in Jingling Court looked at Gerald. All of them were filled with despair. In sharp contrast to the death of Jingling Ting are the holy soldiers of the Invisible Empire and the people of the Star-Crossed Legion. Seeing Gerald's resurrection, everyone knew that the situation had undergone a major reversal. He is indeed a member of the guards personally blessed by His Majesty Hueco. Everyone has godlike power. Thinking of this, everyone's attention returned to the battlefield again. Seeing the confused expressions on everyone's faces, Gerald didn't care at all. Because I had completed the transformation of the holy body before, forming the state of God's power. In this form, he was instantly killed by Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, and the regenerated Gerald was even stronger in power. Seeing the panic on everyone's faces, Gerald directly activated his evolutionary stance. Along with the sudden increase in Ryatsu, Gerald's entire body seemed to have grown larger. However, things are far from over. That huge Ryatsu fell from the sky and directly enveloped Gerald. Although the original physical body had been destroyed by Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara together, even if it was resurrected in the form of a rain of light gathered by spiritual beings, its power still increased irreversibly. Chapter 395, The Embarrassment of the Invisible Empire. In this form, Gerard's body is stronger and his face is completely integrated with the Roman helmet, making his appearance even more exaggerated. Only the frame-like eyes are exposed on the face, the neck is connected in a broken shape, the waist and shoulders are separated, and the light cones are protruding on the shoulders. The overall image is like a giant of light. Seeing such a weird giant of light, everyone felt a sense of fear. The giant of light that enveloped the entire sky in front of him was none other than Gerald, one of the former bodyguards of the Invisible Empire, who had the title of Miracle. In this state at this moment, Gerald seems to have lost the ability to speak. Although his strength is extremely tyrannical, he is more like a powerful tool man at this moment. Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara glanced at each other, obviously not expecting that their actions would cause the other party to evolve to such a level. Looking at it now, there seems to be no solution to this heaven-defying ability. Thinking of this, everyone's eyes turned to Miracle Gerald, the giant of light, again. The latter is eager to try, as if looking for a target to attack. Seeing that the power is getting stronger and stronger, everyone is also afraid that the other party will attack indiscriminately. You must know that such a huge reminder must be very difficult to grasp. If you don't pay attention, you will be killed instantly. Faced with such a terrifying heaven-defying ability, Senju Starry Night directly summoned his own Arrancar Legion. Baraggan, who had gone through the second stage of returning to the sword, was still unfinished at this moment. Faced with the sudden change in front of him, Baraggan did not even think about it and carried out the second stage of returning to the sword again. The bloody skeleton. The Emperor appeared in front of everyone instantly, facing the terrifying skeleton Emperor in front of him. The giant of light that blocked the sky and sun still showed no reaction. It seems that the gigantic figure has indeed lost any consciousness. Facing such a terrifying giant of light, Baraggan instantly felt a little helpless. Poor mortals have lost their true souls for the sake of power. It seems that I don't need to feel pity. Before he finished speaking, Baraggan directly released an enhanced version of his death sigh, turning Gerald into a powder. After releasing the blood skeleton state of the second stage return sword, Baraggan nodded happily after seeing Gerald defeated. Mortals are mortals after all. If you rashly slander the gods, you will be punished by the gods. No matter what your abilities are, they are vulnerable to my corruption. Although he said this, Baraggan also felt very loyal. Fortunately, I had just improved my abilities, otherwise I might not have been able to deal with this giant monster. When Gerald Valkyrie completely disappeared, the cloud-covered sky cleared up again. The sun shines on every corner of Jingling Court, and there is deathly silence everywhere. Everyone was still immersed in the thrilling battle just now, and for a while they even forgot what they should do. The battle between the two sides was suspended as a result, with both sides looking panicked. The Star-Crossed Legion, which was fighting with everyone just a moment ago, now all have livid faces. What's going on here? His Majesty Hueco's bodyguards have fallen again? I didn't expect Soul Society's power to be so terrifying. This is completely different from the information we got before. With emotion, everyone's eyes once again looked at the Senju Starry Knight standing proudly on Sokyoku Hill. Please give me flowers. I didn't expect that such a young man, Yuan Ran, could display such terrifying strength. Not only that, the Senju Buddha that was as big as a mountain just now was also invincible, directly shattering Gerald's body and forcing him to evolve into light. From this point of view, even the two opponents who can perform the Great Buddha are not something that ordinary people can deal with. That's not all. The last Scarlet Skeleton Emperor shipped out of the factory completely disintegrated Gerald with one move. You must know that it is the complete body of Gerald's holy body, which is known as the strongest form of God's power. It can be said that the strength is heaven-defying and comparable to the gods. However, even so, such a miracle Gerald was still killed by the Scarlet Skeleton Emperor with one move. This is enough to show the gap between their strength and abilities. These people looked at such a scene with despair. These people think that they cannot reach the height of Miracle Gerard. If the other party uses this ability on themselves, they will naturally end up decomposed. After all, it is an ability that even the guardsmen cannot resist. How could they, ordinary people from the Star-Crossed Legion, be their opponents? At this time, Senju Kusanai slowly stood up from the throne, walked slowly to the top of Sokyoku Hill, looked down proudly, and looked down at the entire Soul Society. He said calmly, I, Senju Starry Knight, am the Commander-in-Chief of Soul Society during this battle. You have also seen the battle just now. This level of battle is not something you can control at all. I hereby appeal to both of us to suspend the truce and allow your Majesty Hueco to come out and fight in person. Chapter 396, World Reconciliation, Holy Text B. Hazard. Senju Kusanai stared arrogantly. Although his voice was not high-pitched and even a little calm, such an ordinary voice accurately reached the ears of everyone present. Looking at the confused people below, Senju Kusanai looked even more mockingly disdainful. Perhaps you are loyal believers in Hueco, but do you really think Hueco is the salvation? He makes you believe in the power of gods. He claims that you can get this mirage by printing Habush. But is the power you think really invincible? Habush is not God, and his thoughts cannot affect anything in the 877 in the real world. The power he gave you is just a petri dish of power. When Li Liang grows to a mature level, he will take back his power. Such a monarch, do you still want to continue to be superstitious? After hearing this, everyone looked towards the top of Sokyoku Hill and looked at Senju Kusanai, who had just spoken out his heroic words. In fact, why don't they want Hueco to stand up and explain it himself? I originally thought that as a warrior of Hueco, trusting in Hueco's power would give me unparalleled invincible power. They originally thought that Hueco was their belief in victory. However, after witnessing the demise of several members of the guards at this moment, everyone's mentality also changed a lot. It turns out that the abilities they always thought were invincible were nothing in the eyes of others. However, at this moment, although Hueco had not yet appeared, a man with yellow hair appeared in front of Senju Kusanai. I saw that the surrounding shadows began to distort, and a strange space like the Danman was completed visible to the naked eye. Looking at this yellow-haired man, Senju Kusanai immediately knew the identity of this man. Astonishingly, it turned out to be Hueco's personal bodyguard, Eugen Hazard, known as the Holy Letter B. In addition to being Hueco's personal guard, Hazard is also regarded as a half-body existence by Hueco. As the highest-ranking member of the Knights of the Star Cross, he is respected and supported by most members of the Knights of the Star Cross. He obeys Hueco's words and is always ready to protect Hueco. Because of this, Hazard was also highly valued by Hueco. He was given the mask of the ruler during Hueco's sleep, and he was Hueco's most trusted and closest Quincy. Late at night, Bbook would exchange abilities with Hazard. It is precisely because of this that Hazard will briefly activate his omniscience and omnipotence at night. In this way, he will be able to see part of the truth about Hueco, and he will also be able to forgive and resolve his past hatred. He obviously killed Hazard's whole family, but he didn't expect that he couldn't tame it into his most obedient dog. I have to say that Habush is really a master of pure. Unexpectedly, Hazard, Hueco's inseparable personal bodyguard, also appeared in front of him. Seeing such a scene, Senju Kusanai also nodded secretly. 3 of the 4 members of the guards have died so far, so Hueco shouldn't be able to sit still, right? Although you are also Hueco's personal guard, I remember that your village was destroyed by Hueco. I still sympathize with your experience. But I know a secret. The reason why you hide yourself from Hueco is just to endure the hatred you felt back then. right? But there's one thing I don't understand. When did you forget your hatred? Or it may be that you have not forgotten your hatred at all. But you are just afraid of Hueco's omniscient and omnipotent ability. Logically speaking, Hueco knew your purpose from the very beginning. And you later found out that Hueco knew about your hatred, so you actually hinted in your heart that you had eliminated that hatred. Am I right? Faced with Senju Kusanai's speculation, Euclid Hazard was non-committal, just staring at Senju Kusanai's position indifferently. Looking at Senju Kusanai's expression, Hazard smiled coldly and said, "You guessed it right. I did lurk next to him with the purpose of assassinating His Majesty Hueco Bark at first. But when I learned the truth about the world, my personal hatred became less important. You, my enemy, dare to thwart Hueco's great plan. As the most loyal believer of His Majesty Hueco and the highest-ranking knight of the Invisible Empire's Star-Crossed Legion, I will never allow you to exist." As he spoke, Hazard pulled out his accessories and pointed the sword directly at Senju Starry Knight's position. The dark cloud of unparalleled murderous intent appeared instantly, oppressing everyone around them to the point of being suffocated. Looking at Senju Kusanai, who looked calm, Hazard also impatiently explained his abilities. "I, Euclid Hazard, am the most loyal knight of His Majesty Hueco." The holy text B means world reconciliation. Chapter 397. If you accept a thief as your father, you are a coward. Facing the Senju Starry Knight in front of him, Hazard also explained his abilities impatiently. "My holy text is B, world harmony. Give misfortune directly to the opponent through the sword, and the thing that has been turned into misfortune will become fragile in front of your own power. So, no matter how powerful your ability is, as long as you are given misfortune by me, your ability will be vulnerable to me." Hazard's words were not false. "When I was fighting against Kangdu, I was unable to attack in the face of the opponent's defense." Hazard also directly gave the opponent misfortune, and then was cut in half by Hazard's sword and died. An originally invincible defense only needs to be given misfortune to make it vulnerable. That's what Hazard is capable of. Of course, this ability is not without any shortcomings. When Sword 29 cannot bring misfortune to the other party, it means that the other party has a certain degree of luck. In this case, it will cause itself to be shrouded in misfortune. This situation is similar to a backlash situation. Hazard needs to offset the opponent's luck by collecting misfortunes around the world. Only in this way can the balance of luck be corrected and the unfortunate success be bestowed on the opponent. However, the luck that the other party gives him harm will be forced to bear the same amount of misfortune. Faced with such a backlash, Hazard could only use the scape shield to counterattack with refraction. Use the power of the scape shield to turn this misfortune into damage, and then reflect it on the opponent. This is also a way to cause secondary damage to the opponent. Senju Kusanai also expressed some curiosity about Hazard's ability. "Are my experiences in these two lives a blessing or a misfortune?" Based on Hazard's ability, even if he is weakened, it should be a proportional weakening. In other words, as long as one's own strength is strong enough, it can still exert the power to kill the opponent instantly even after being weakened. This so-called ability to impart misfortune has little effect on combat. The only difference is that before, you only needed one finger to kill him instantly, but now you may need a fist. That's all. However, the result will not be any different. Thinking of this, Senju Kusanai also smiled disdainfully. "Actually, there's one thing I really want to know. What kind of thinking logic did you use to become the most loyal wild dog of Hueco after you briefly turned on omniscience and omnipotence? What kind of scene did you see that would make you want to forget the hatred of your parents and clan members who were tortured and killed? If you really activate omniscience and omnipotence, you should know that Hueco's purpose is just to use you as a container of power. He only temporarily stores his power with you, and will take it away together with your soul when needed. You, who once enabled omniscience and omnipotence, should have foreseen this, right?" Facing Senju Kusanai's questioning, Hazard's expression looked very strange. Indeed, he who had once unlocked omniscience and omnipotence had indeed met his own end. However, at this moment, facing Senju Kusanai in front of him, he smiled calmly and said calmly, "Being able to be sucked away by His Majesty Hueco is something that everyone should feel honored to do. Those who have not had their power taken away by Hueco should feel sorrow. They are not even qualified to have their power taken away by Hueco. This is the most tragic thing. Don't say anything like my parents were killed by Hueco. They only sacrificed their lives for His Majesty Hueco's glorious plan. I have only gratitude for Hueco, no hatred." Judging from your performance just now, your ability is worthy of recognition. I suggest that you also join the Knights of Hueco and contribute to Hueco. This is your ultimate glory. Listening to Hazard's words, Senju Kusanai's blood pressure soared. This person's brain can be called a diode, with a monotonous thinking model of 907. It's no wonder that Hueco became such a fanatical believer. Facing Euclid Hazard in front of him, Senju Kusanai just sneered slightly. "You have been talking about Hueco's glorious plan for a long time. What about your own plans?" "What are your own plans?" "Those people fighting below, do they have their own plans?" "Then what is their plan?" "What reason do others have to sacrifice their lives?" souls, and even their own parents for Hueco's plan. The reason why you dare not take revenge is entirely because of your weakness. Facing the power of Hueco, you chose to become a poor mouse and live a humble life in front of the strong man. And your so-called glory is just cowardice because you are too timid to resist. You, Hasward. What a coward. Chapter 398, Mortal Body has reached its limit. When Senju Kusanai spoke, his tone became louder and louder little by little, and finally he scolded him harshly. After hearing Senju Kusanai's scolding, Hasward's face turned livid. It's not that he doesn't understand this truth. It can be said that at a certain stage in the past, he also fell into this moral condemnation. Following the murder of his parents' tribe, he became his father, and in the end he willingly became someone else's dog. In the past, he could not forgive himself for his cowardice. Over the course of thousands of years, he had excused himself countless times and explained himself in his heart. It finally had this effect. Such a long time has passed, and he has been resisting this period of struggle in his heart. Until this moment, the long-term subconscious avoidance had made him forget the original entanglement. I thought that the unbearable past of that year would be buried in the deepest part of my heart together with this memory. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Senju Kusanai mentioned it again in front of me, and my past entanglements suddenly flooded into my mind. The negative emotions that had been accumulated for a long time exploded in an instant, achieving a flood release effect. Feeling the frustration in his heart, Hasward also understood the principle in an instant. It seems that you are very smart, although I don't know where you came from to know my past. But your behavior is nothing more than trying to break my mentality, shake my faith, and make my strength weaker. My ability is world reconciliation. You want me to feel misfortune, so that the balance of victory will tip to you, and more luck will tip to you. It seems you are a really cunning opponent. When Hasward spoke, he looked like he had seen through his opponent's mentality. It looks like you have everything under control. Seeing Hasward like this, Kusanai simply accepted the nonsense. The main reason why you gave up the blood feud between your parents and people because of Hueco is because of your cowardice. Facing a powerful enemy, you simply don't dare to resist. Look at my strength. Do you think you have the ability to face me? As he spoke, Senju Kusanai's eyes once again transformed into the red 6 Magatama Rinnegan form. The terrifying pressure spread instantly, and everything around seemed to be trembling under the pressure. Hasward, who has experienced omniscience and omnipotence, theoretically has a supernormal understanding of power. However, even so, he still could not see the power of Senju Kusanai. I don't know why, but facing the Senju Starry Knight in front of me feels even more terrifying than facing Hueco. For a moment, Hasward was really confused. Were all my previous thoughts wrong? This is the first time Hasward has doubted his own knowledge. Is there really anyone in the world who can match the power of Hueco? This is simply a fantasy and impossible. However, even if Hasward tried his best to deny it, everything he saw before his eyes actually happened. What the hell is going on? If there is really someone who can surpass His Majesty Hueco in power, why can't that person be me? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Don't try to confuse me with words. I want you to see the power His Majesty Hueco has given me. This is the power of faith, absolute power, and at the same time invincible power. Oh, Hasward, holy word be. I am second only to His Majesty Hueco. Today I'm going to let you see what power is. I want you to see how powerful I am after following Hueco. Following His Majesty Hueco is my only choice and the only right choice. Through a hysterical roar, Hasward directly displayed the state of the holy body. With a roar, Hasward directly unleashed his strongest ability. Holy text B. World Reconciliation. After activating the ability, the powerful of misfortune burst out instantly and spread rapidly within a limited area. This is a powerful of misfortune, and once it is contaminated with misfortune, its power will be weakened. Hasward can circumvent such power through the shield of escape. Senju Kusanai watched Hasward, Li Zhao's, display his abilities, but did not exert any resistance. It was as if there was no thought of stopping Hasward in front of him. Soon, misfortune filled the entire space. After the unfortunate weakening, Hasward also watched with his own eyes as the Senju Starry Knight in front of him was superimposed with countless layers of unfortunate buffs. Among them are the misfortune of Senju Starry Knight, and the misfortune of Hasward rebounded through the scapic shield. According to the status displayed on Senju Kusanai's head, 99% of Senju Kusanai's abilities have been weakened at this moment. At the same time, this is also the limit of weakening power that Hasward can achieve. After all, he is just a mortal, and this level is already his limit. Chapter 399, Holy Text B, can be broken easily. The Senju Starry Knight in front of him had been weakened by 99% of his power. Faced with such a situation, Hasward burst into wild laughter again. Ha 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 ha, you see, this is the power that Hueco gave me. No one is worth mentioning in front of me. I admit your strength, but your strength needs to be discounted by 99% in front of me. In this state, your abilities are almost exhausted, right? How can you, who has lost all your abilities, compete with me, the genius of this invisible empire? How dare you preach to me? Compared to my situation, I advise you to take a closer look at your own situation. How ridiculous. Facing Hasward's ridicule, Senju Kusanai also smiled coldly and corrected. Is weakening 99% of your strength your limit? I need 177 to correct you, that is, weakening 99% does not eliminate all power. 0 multiplied by any number is 0. Similarly, infinite power is still infinite even when it is weakened by 99%. You spread your misfortune through your ability to mediate the world, and you want to make others pay for your cowardice and ignorance. This is so ridiculous. It's obviously your own misfortune, and you should bear it yourself. They will only lament their misfortunes, speak high-sounding words, but point their finger at others, and dare not face their own enemies. How sad. Since you have already used your ability to reconcile the world, you think you have completely weakened my ability. Then you can attack me now. As he spoke, Senju Kusanai still had his hands behind his back and looked arrogantly, as if he didn't even pay attention to Hazard in front of him. Looking at Senju Starry Night like this, Hazard was also very angry. It seems you are determined to reduce me to worthlessness. You'll pay for this. While speaking, Hazard directly launched an attack on Senju Starry Night. Construct the Spirit Subspace Middle Dot Shadow Hexagram. The starting point is the more powerful skill among his own abilities. Through special power, the spiritual power is converted into black liquid, which is integrated with the black shadow to build a new spiritual subspace, and then uses the shadow hexagram to release the high-energy, condensed spirit flames to attack opponents. Seeing Hazard displaying such a powerful skill, Tenzin did not dare to neglect it. Even if the ability is weakened by 99%, the ability that could originally travel through various space worlds is now very easy to teleport the black hexagram to a different space. However, Senju Kusanai did not intend to do this. It is nothing more than an ordinary attack. Even if the destructive power of the attack is different, the single attack mode is its biggest shortcoming. Facing the black energy rain ahead like a gust of wind, Senju Star, CJABH, you just looked at it. The shadow space constructed by the spirit particles was instantly decomposed into harmless spirit particles, which finally drifted away in the wind, leaving no trace behind. Hazard looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't believe his eyes. This is already the strongest skill that he can display, but facing Senju Kusanai who has been weakened by 99%, it is still useless. Is it possible that the strength that I had to bear in exchange for enduring the shame of being a thief and a father was not even 1% of the strength of the man in front of me? This is really incredible. If this is really the case, then what is the meaning of my faith for so many years? Is it really like what Senju Kusanai in front of me said, that he has been just escaping for so many years? Although he had such thoughts in his heart, Hazard was not reluctant to admit it. Seeing Senju Kusanai standing in front of him with a calm look, Hazard felt even more shocked. Am I so miserable in your eyes? You didn't even look at me seriously. The power I paid so much for is worthless in your eyes? Do you really look down on me so much? As he spoke, Hazard's tone became increasingly gloomy. In the end, I couldn't help but tremble with anger. However, in the eyes of Senju Kusanai, this kind of Hazard was just angry. In the final analysis, it's just a clown self-performance. Thinking of this, Senju Kusanai also smiled disdainfully and said coldly, you just want me to look at you properly? A person who is willing to be a dog in the face of the murderer of his parents and clan members is not worthy of being called a human being in my eyes. What other abilities you have, I advise you to use them directly. What you call world harmony, in my eyes, is nothing more than rubbish power that can be broken at any time. The reason why I keep facing you like this is just to completely crush your self-esteem. Chapter 400, Defeated, Completely Defeated. Facing Senju Kusanai's talk, Hazard couldn't believe his ears. You must know that your ability of Holy Word B is the power given to you by Hueco, but the other party actually said that it can be broken with a flick of your hand. This kind of statement is simply a fantasy. However, before Hazard could say anything, Senju Kusanai stretched out a finger and said coldly, 1 minute. Next, I only give you 1 minute. You can use your strongest ability to attack me. 1 minute should be enough. Did you cast it? After 1 minute, regardless of whether you take action or not, I will use 1% of my ability to kill you instantly. I advise you not to be stubborn. It is best to follow my advice. Next, the timer starts. After Senju Kusanai finished speaking, his whole body stood on the spot, still looking at Hazard in front of him with an indifferent expression. The disdainful expression was full of disdain. Seeing Senju Kusanai's arrogant expression, Hazard couldn't help it after all. It seems you really underestimate me. Then let me see how you can kill me with 1% of your power. As he spoke, Hazard drew his sword, and his whole body exuded unparalleled Ryatsu. As the leader of the Knights of the Star Cross, Hueco is a half-body and a substitute that he personally acknowledges. Although Hazard has a somewhat eccentric and even paranoid personality, his strength and power are absolutely unquestionable. The moment he drew his sword, Ryatsu soared into the sky, straight into the sky. The sword composed of ultra-highly compressed spirit particles also emitted a faint blue light at this moment. With such a spirit sword, Hazard once cut off Kurosaki Epigo's Zanpei Kuto, and even split Aiz Nanao's white broken wall with one sword. It seems to have the ability to cut heaven and earth, as if there is nothing in the world that this collar accessory cannot cut. It was such a sword, but at this moment he was facing Senju Kusanai, whose power had been weakened by 99%. Flame Busby, who was watching such a battle from a distance, also completely saw Hasward's true face. I didn't expect that my former friend had fallen to such a state. Not only did he regard his thieves as his father and forget about hatred, he could even use all his strength to attack an opponent with only 1% of his strength test in 10. This kind of behavior can be said to be full of Quincy's cunning. Although they are both Quincy, Busby is ashamed of Hasward. It's a shame that I considered him my friend before. However, even though he complained, Busby was still a little nervous and very curious about this battle. With this idea in mind, Busby also fixed his sights on the battle here, and after Hasward drew out the super-compressed high-concentration spirit sword, he had no intention of holding back at all. According to his thinking logic, the other party has the ability to reconcile the world, and the power is weakened only because his own ability has played a role, not because the other party has given way to him. The selfishness that has always been well disguised is now fully displayed. With the injection of Ryatsu, the Hueco sword instantly bloomed with light, and the Azure Ryatsu instantly filled the entire Sokyoku Hill. Facing the Senju Starry Knight in front of him, Hasward did not hold back at all. As the leader of the Star-Cross Legion, Hueco's personal bodyguard, he was the first to receive the gift of the half of Hueco. Holy word be Hasward. Yen TT. Full of anger and everything that had been carried over the past 1,000 years, the spirit sword in Hasward's hand suddenly grew in size, and finally turned into a towering giant sword. The super high concentration of Ryatsu seemed to be able to split the heaven and the earth, and with one strike of the sword, the 9 heavens fell in shock. Facing the endless sword intent in front of him, Senju Kusanai did not dodge or evade, but just took out the newly completed fu in his hand. Feeling the soul of the sword hidden in the sheath, Senju Kusanai was also gently awakened. Wake up, fu. Along with the words of liberation, the soul of the sword sleeping in the sheath instantly awakened. As if feeling the strong sword intent of Hasward, Sheath Fu Sword Soul, who had not been exposed to such terrifying sword intent for a long time, was also very excited. The entire blade seemed to be trembling with excitement, and almost at the same time, a sharp scream came from the blade. The next second, Senju Kusanai faced the terrifying spirit sword in front of him and swung out a sword intent. Yun's sheath with infinite pressure instantly generated an extremely terrifying sword intention. That superb Ryatsu seemed to contain unparalleled power, and the surrounding space seemed to be cut into cracks. The sword swept across and slashed upward. It happened that he met Hasward's sword intent head-on. Seeing such a head-on collision, everyone watching around was so nervous that they didn't dare to breathe. You must know that this is the leader of their Star-Cross Legion, the holy text B that symbolizes the strongest power under Hueco, Hasward. If Hasward fails completely, this invisible empire invasion will be declared a failure. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.